Bradley Shaw grabbed his lawyer by the throat and slammed him against the office wall. She's 8 months pregnant, living in her car, and has $300 to her name. Explain to me how this is difficult. The lawyer's face turned purple. Mr. Shaw, please. My father spent 40 years bearing what that old man knew. 40 years of bribes, threats, and bodies. And now some pathetic little widow thinks she can waltz into that house and take what belongs to me. He released the lawyer, who collapsed. Gasping, Shaw straightened his tie, calm again, which was somehow more terrifying than the violence. I want her watched. I want her followed. I want to know every person she talks to and every hole she digs. His voice dropped to a whisper. And when she finds what Dutch hid, I want it, all of it. Then make her disappear. Her and that baby. Before we continue, subscribe and comment where you're watching from. Because what Emma Dawson discovered in that house wasn't just money. It was proof that Bradley Shaw's family had been stealing, lying, and murdering for 3 generations, and now they wanted her dead before she could tell the world. The shelter coordinator slid a paper across the desk. Sign at the bottom. Emma Dawson stared at the eviction notice. Her hand moved to her swollen belly, 8 months pregnant, as if protecting her daughter from the words on the page. You're kicking me out. We have families waiting, children who need beds. I have a child, Emma's voice cracked. She's right here, growing inside me. Mrs. Dawson, I'm sorry. The policy is clear. 60 days maximum. You've been here 63. 3 extra days. You're throwing a pregnant woman onto the street over 3 days. The coordinator's face hardened. Sign the paper. Emma grabbed the pen. Her hand shook so badly the signature looked like a lie. You have until 5 o'clock to collect your belongings. Emma stood. The room tilted. She grabbed the desk to steady herself. Are you all right? I'm fine. She wasn't fine. She hadn't been fine since the police officer knocked on her door 6 months ago. Ma'am, are you Ryan Dawson's wife? There's been an accident. Not an accident. A murder. A drunk driver at 2 in the afternoon running a red light at 60 miles per hour while her husband picked up paint samples for the nursery. The coordinator pushed a manila envelope across the desk. This came for you. I forgot yesterday. Emma took it without looking. Another bill, probably. Another reminder of everything she'd lost. She walked out of that office with nothing. No home, no money, no plan. $312 in her checking account. A car with a cracked windshield and an engine that screamed every time she turned the key. A garbage bag of clothes. A baby coming in 10 weeks. And now, apparently, a letter. Emma sat in her car and tore open the envelope. The law firm's letterhead meant nothing to her. Hartley and Associates, Harmony Falls, West Virginia. She'd never heard of the place, but the name in the first paragraph stopped her cold. Harold Dutch Dawson, your maternal grandfather, deceased as of 4 months prior. Emma read faster. Property, sole heir, Victorian house on 12 acres. That's impossible, she whispered. She hadn't seen Dutch since she was 8 years old. Her mother had forbidden contact, said he was dangerous, said he'd done something unforgivable that Emma was too young to understand. Emma had asked about him once when she was 16. Her mother had slapped her across the face and said, that man killed my mother, don't ever mention him again. And now he'd left her a house. She dialed the number on the letterhead. A woman answered on the second ring. Hartley and Associates? My name is Emma Dawson. I received a letter about an inheritance. Silence? Then, Mrs. Dawson, we've been trying to reach you for 4 months. I've been moving around. The property is yours, free and clear. You just need to sign the transfer documents. What's the catch? Another silence. Longer this time. There's no catch, Mrs. Dawson. But I should tell you, 3 other heirs tried to claim the property before we found you. They all declined. Why? You should come see for yourself. But Mrs. Dawson, be careful. That house has a history. Emma hung up. Her hands were shaking again, but not from weakness this time. She had a house. Whatever history it had, whatever her mother thought about Dutch, none of it mattered. She had somewhere to go. Emma started the engine. It screamed like something dying, but it ran. She pulled out of the shelter parking lot and headed for West Virginia. The drive should have taken 4 hours. It took 6. The first problem was gas. Emma had enough money to fill the tank or buy food. Not both. She chose gas and ignored the hunger, clawing at her stomach. The second problem was the truck. She noticed it somewhere around the Ohio-West Virginia border. A black pickup keeping 3 car lengths behind her, matching her speed exactly. When she slowed to 60, it slowed. When she sped up to 75, it sped up. "You're being paranoid," she told herself. "It's just another driver going the same direction." But when she took an exit for a rest stop, the truck took it too. Emma parked near the building where cameras would capture everything. She watched in her mirror as the truck parked at the far end of the lot. A man got out. Big, baseball cap pulled low. He leaned against his door and lit a cigarette facing her car. Emma's phone had 12% battery. She dialed 911 and held her thumb over the call button. For 5 minutes, nothing happened. The man smoked. Emma watched. Her daughter kicked against her ribs, responding to the fear flooding Emma's bloodstream. Then the man's phone rang. She saw him answer, listen, nod. He threw the cigarette down, got in his truck, and drove away. Emma waited another 10 minutes before she moved. "Okay, Holland." She put her hand on her belly. "That was scary, but we're okay. We're going to be okay." She didn't believe it, but she said it anyway because saying things out loud sometimes made them true. The rest of the drive passed in tense silence. Emma kept checking her mirrors, but the black truck didn't reappear. Harmony Falls announced itself with a rusted sign, Population 2847. The town looked like somewhere hope had come to die. Empty storefronts, cracked sidewalks, a diner with half its neon letters burned out, a church with a steeple that listed slightly to the left like it was tired of standing straight. Emma pulled up to an old man walking a dog that looked older than he was. "Excuse me, I'm looking for Dawson Road." The man's face changed. Fear flickered behind his eyes, quickly hidden. "What business you got on Dawson Road?" "I inherited a house there. From my grandfather." "Dutch Dawson?" "Yes." The man stepped back from her car. Actually stepped away like she'd told him she had a disease. "Lady, turn around. Go back where you came from." "I can't do that." "Then God help you." He shook his head. "That house has killed 3 people who tried to claim it. Bad things happen there. Accidents, fires. One fellow fell down the stairs and broke his neck 2 days after he moved in. Sounds like clumsiness, not a curse. Call it what you want, but Dutch was the only one who could live there, and now Dutch is dead." The man started walking away. "Heart attack, they say. Found him cold in the kitchen. But some folks think it wasn't his heart that killed him. Some folks think he knew something he shouldn't have, and somebody wanted him quiet." Who would want that?" The man stopped. He didn't turn around. "You want my advice, sell that property without ever stepping foot inside. Take whatever money you can get and disappear. That's what smart people do." "What if I'm not smart?" Now he turned. His eyes were sad. "Then I'll pray for you, and that baby." He walked away before Emma could respond. She sat in her car processing. Cursed house. Dead heirs. Something Dutch knew that got him killed. Her hand moved to her belly. Holland kicked. "I know," Emma whispered. "I'm scared too, but we don't have anywhere else to go." She put the car in drive and headed for Dawson Road. The house was worse than anything Emma had imagined. 3 stories of decay, paint peeling in sheets, windows dark and empty like dead eyes, a porch that sagged so badly it looked like it was melting, a tower on one corner with half its shingles gone, the exposed wood gray and rotting. Emma parked in a driveway, more weeds than gravel. She didn't get out immediately. She just sat there staring at what her grandfather had left her. "This is it, Holland. This is home." The baby didn't kick. Even she seemed skeptical. Emma got out of the car. The wind cut through her thin jacket. October in West Virginia, and she'd had to sell her winter coat last month. The front gate hung open on broken hinges. The path was cracked concrete, weeds everywhere. Dead flower beds lined both sides, brown stalks that might have been roses in some better time. She climbed the porch steps carefully. The 3rd one groaned. The 5th felt soft. She made a mental note avoid those. The front door had a brass knocker shaped like a lion's head, green with age. Emma pulled out the keys the law firm had mailed her. 3 on a rusted ring. The 1st didn't fit. The 2nd slid in but wouldn't turn. The 3rd clicked. The door swung open with a sound like something in pain. The smell hit her immediately. Dust and mildew and something underneath, something sweet and wrong. Emma stepped inside. The hallway stretched before her wallpaper. Her peeling carpet worn thin. Dust covered everything like gray snow. But something was wrong. Footprints. Fresh footprints in the dust leading from the front door toward the back of the house. Emma's heart slammed against her ribs. Someone had been here. Recently. Maybe today. "Hello?" her voice echoed. "Is someone here?" Silence. Then a creak from somewhere above her. Floorboards under weight. Emma grabbed the closest thing she could find, an umbrella from a stand by the door, and held it like a weapon. "I know you're here. I'm calling the police." More silence. Then footsteps. Running. Not toward her away. Toward the back of the house. A door slammed. Glass shattered. Emma ran toward the sound, her pregnant belly making her slow, awkward. She reached the kitchen just in time to see a figure disappearing through a broken window. She caught a glimpse, dark clothes, baseball cap pulled low. The same man from the rest stop. "Hey, stop!" But he was gone, swallowed by the overgrown yard and the gathering dark. Emma stood in that kitchen, breathing hard, umbrella still raised, and realized she was shaking. Someone had been in her house. Watching. Waiting. And when she'd arrived, they'd run. Why? Her eyes swept the room. Old appliances. Cracked linoleum. A table with 2 chairs. And on the table, a glass of water. Not dusty. Fresh. Condensation still beating on the sides. Next to it, a note. Emma picked it up with trembling hands. "Leave tonight. Take what's in the well house. Don't come back." She read it 3 times. The handwriting was shaky old. Not the writing of someone young enough to climb out windows. 2 people then. The one who'd left the note and the one who'd been watching her. But who and why Emma looked out the broken window at the darkening yard. Somewhere out there was a building called the well house. And according to this note, something was inside it that she needed to take. Her first instinct was to leave. Get back in her car and drive until the gas ran out. This was too much. A house full of secrets, strangers watching her notes telling her to run. But where would she go? Back to the shelter that had just kicked her out. Back to her car, to sleeping in parking lots, to explaining to police officers why a pregnant woman was living in a Honda with a cracked windshield. She was done running. Emma crumpled the note and threw it in the garbage. Then she went to find the well house. It was 200 feet from the main house, barely visible in the fading light. A small stone structure with a heavy wooden door. The door was padlocked. Emma found a rock and smashed the lock. It took 4 tries. By the end, her hands were scraped and bleeding, but the door swung open. Inside a workshop. Tools on pegboards. Half-finished furniture covered in sawdust. The smell of wood and oil. And in the corner under a workbench, a trapdoor with a rusted iron ring. Emma stared at it. Her instincts screamed that she should leave it alone. Take the note's advice, grab whatever was down there, and run. But she'd spent her whole life not asking questions about her family. Not pushing when her mother shut down. Not demanding answers about the grandmother she'd never known, the grandfather she'd been forbidden to see. She was done not asking. Emma grabbed the iron ring and pulled. The trapdoor came up with a groan of old hinges. Below darkness, a ladder leading down into nothing. "Holland, if this is stupid, I apologize in advance." She climbed down. Her feet hit concrete. She fumbled along the wall until she found a switch. Fluorescent lights flickered, buzzed, steadied. Emma gasped. She was standing in a vault. Concrete walls reinforced with steel. A heavy door that looked like it belonged in a bank. And in the center, a military footlocker with Korean war markings. She approached it slowly. Lifted the lid. Money. Stacks of it. 20s and 50s, son, rubber banded and organized. Emma grabbed a stack. Counted. $1,000. She counted the stacks. $87,000. Her legs gave out. She sat down hard on the concrete floor and started to cry. The tears came from somewhere deep, releasing 6 months of terror. 6 months of wondering how she'd keep her daughter alive. 6 months of being so scared she could barely breathe. And now she was sitting on $87,000. Oh God, she was laughing and crying at the same time. Oh God, oh God. When the tears finally stopped, Emma wiped her face and looked at what else was in the footlocker. A leather journal filled with handwriting she didn't recognize. Military medals, including one with a silver star. Photographs. Dozens of them. She picked up the photos and froze. They were of her. Emma at 5 playing in a park. Emma at 12 walking to school. Emma at 16 getting into a car. Emma at her high school graduation. Emma at her wedding laughing in Ryan's arms. Her grandfather had been watching her. Her entire life. What the hell? At the bottom of the footlocker, an envelope. Her name written on it in shaky script. "For Emma, when you're ready." She opened it. The letter inside was 3 pages handwritten. She read it with growing horror. "Dear Emma, if you're reading this, I'm dead and you found your way home. I'm sorry I couldn't explain in person. I'm sorry for everything. Your grandmother was murdered. I know you were told she died in a car accident. That's the official story. But Ruth didn't die because of ice on the road or failed brakes. Ruth died because of what I knew and what I was too afraid to tell. In 1953, I served in Korea with a man named Vernon Shaw. We discovered stolen gold and artifacts hidden by retreating forces. Shaw wanted to take it. I refused. It didn't matter. Shaw took what he wanted and built an empire on blood money. When we came home, he was a hero, and I was nobody. He became a senator, then a real estate tycoon. He bought half this state. I kept quiet. I had Ruth. I had your mother. I had something to lose. But I also had evidence. Documents proving what Shaw did in Korea and what he kept doing after. In 1987, I finally found courage. I filed a complaint with the FBI, told them everything. 3 weeks later, Ruth was dead. They made it look like an accident, a curve she'd driven 1,000 times. But I knew the truth, and I've been a coward ever since. Vernon Shaw died 10 years ago. His son Bradley has the empire now. Bradley is worse than his father ever was. He knows I have evidence. He's been hunting for it for 30 years. The 3 people who tried to claim this house before you, Bradley's people scared them off. Or worse. The money in this footlocker is yours. $87,000 saved over 50 years. Take it. Keep yourself and that baby safe. But there's more. 2 other caches hidden on the property. One with Pastor Williams at the church. One in the old mine on the North Ridge. Together more than $200,000. And there's the evidence. Everything I gathered about the Shaw family. Enough to put Bradley in prison and expose what his father did to your grandmother. I'm leaving you a choice, Emma. You can take the money, sell the house, disappear. I won't blame you. Or you can do what I couldn't. You can finish what I started. You can make them pay for Ruth. I wanted to be brave. I wanted to be the man Ruth believed I was. But I ran out of time and courage. Maybe you'll have more of both. I love you, Emma. I've loved you since you were born. I watched over Ruth from a distance because I was too ashamed to do it in person. Your mother never forgave me for Ruth's death. She blamed me for not fighting back. She was right. Finish what I started, or don't. Either way, know that you were loved. Your grandfather, Dutch P.S. Trust Marcus Webb. He'll find you. He knows everything. Emma read the letter twice more. Her hands had stopped shaking. Something cold and clear had replaced the fear. Her grandmother had been murdered. Her grandfather had spent 40 years hiding evidence. And now that evidence was hers. She climbed out of the vault as darkness fell completely. The main house loomed against the night sky, and she saw it differently now. Not a curse. A fortress. Built to protect secrets worth killing for. Emma walked back inside, locked what remained of the door, and pushed a heavy cabinet against it. She found a bedroom on the 2nd floor with a door that locked and windows that weren't broken. She didn't sleep. She sat with her grandfather's journal and read. The entries started in 1952. Young and naive shipping off to war. By 1953, everything had changed. Shaw shot a civilian today, a farmer who saw us loading the trucks. Shot him in the back while he was running. Said it was necessary. Said the man would have talked. I threw up behind the supply depot and Shaw laughed. Called me soft. I took documents from Shaw's footlocker, inventories, transport orders. He doesn't know. I don't know what I'll do with them, but I can't let this be forgotten. The entries about Ruth started in 1960. Met a woman at church, Ruth. She laughed at my terrible jokes. I think I'm in love. Married Ruth today. Happiest day of my life. She doesn't know about Korea. Maybe she never will. The entries about Ruth's death, were sparse. Clinical. Ruth is dead. Car accident on Highway 7. Black ice, they say. But there was no ice. I drove out there at 3 in the morning. The road was dry. Shaw sent flowers to the funeral. White roses. Ruth's favorite. He wanted me to know he can reach my family whenever he wants. Emma closed the journal as dawn light crept through the dirty windows. Her grandmother, murdered. For evidence her husband had been too afraid to use. And now Emma had to decide run or fight. A knock on the front door nearly stopped her heart. Emma grabbed the cast iron skillet she'd found in the kitchen, crept down the stairs, approached the door with the skillet raised. Who's there? Marcus Webb. Dutch sent me. The name from the letter. The man Dutch said to trust. Emma opened the door, an inch skillet ready. The man on her porch was in his 40s, weathered facework clothes, hands that had done hard labor for decades. He looked at the skillet and almost smiled. You read the letter? Who are you? Someone who's been waiting for you for 4 months. So. He held up both hands, showing he wasn't armed. Dutch asked me to help whoever finally came. He didn't think it would be you, hoped but didn't think. Why? Because the Shaws have been watching this property since Dutch died. They've scared off everyone else, but you're still here. Someone was in my house last night, watching me, ran out a window when I came in. Marcus's expression darkened. Shaw's people. They've had someone here every day waiting to see if whoever inherited the property would find the vault. They know about the money. They know Dutch hid something. They've been tearing this place apart for 30 years trying to find it. Marcus lowered his hands. Can I come in? What I need to tell you isn't safe to discuss where anyone can hear. Emma stepped back, letting him enter. She didn't lower the skillet. Marcus walked into the living room and stood by the cold fireplace. Dutch hired me 20 years ago. I was a carpenter just starting out. Underbid a job, was going to lose everything. Dutch paid me double what I owed him. Said a young man's got to learn on someone's dollar. That doesn't explain why he trusted you. No, it doesn't. Marcus was quiet for a moment. There's something else, something Dutch wanted me to tell you in person. What? Dutch was my father. The skillet wavered. What? My mother had an affair with him in 1978, brief. Ruth never knew, or if she knew, she forgave him. My mother told me the truth when she was dying 15 years ago. I confronted Dutch. He didn't deny it. Emma's mind raced. Her grandfather, an affair. A half-uncle she'd never known existed. Why didn't he tell me himself? He was ashamed. Of everything. The affair. Keeping it secret. Not being a real father to me. Marcus finally sat down. Dutch was ashamed of a lot of things, Emma, but he loved you. He watched you your whole life. Hired people to take photos, send updates. I think protecting you from a distance made him feel like he was doing something, even if he was too scared to do it properly. Emma lowered the skillet. Sat down across from him. The Shaws killed my grandmother. Yes. And Dutch spent 40 years hiding evidence instead of using it. He was terrified. After Ruth died, he knew what they could do. He didn't want to lose Margaret, too, or you. My mother, she blamed him. She blamed him for being weak, for not fighting back, for letting them win. Marcus leaned forward. But Dutch never stopped gathering evidence, never stopped building the case. He always said someday the right person would come and finish what he started. He thought that was me. He hoped. Marcus held her gaze. But he also said if you wanted to take the money and run, he'd understand. He said the choice was yours. Emma thought about the $87,000, about the other caches Dutch had mentioned. More than $200,000 total. Enough to disappear, to start over somewhere safe. But she also thought about Ruth, about white roses at a funeral, about Bradley Shaw still out there, still destroying lives. What do the Shaws want? The evidence, all of it. Dutch kept the originals hidden somewhere they've never found. The 3 heirs before you, they were scared off by accidents and threats. Shaw's people made sure nobody stayed long enough to search. They'll watch me, wait for me to find it. Yes? And then, Marcus didn't answer. He didn't need to. Emma stood, walked to the window. The sun was fully up now, revealing the property, the well house, the overgrown fields, the tree line hiding whatever Dutch had called the North Ridge. My grandfather spent 40 years being afraid. He let them win because fighting seemed too dangerous. Emma's voice was steady. But I've already lost everything. My husband, my job, my home. I've got nothing left except my daughter and whatever stubbornness I got from my mother. She turned to face Marcus. I'm not running. I'm going to find every piece of evidence Dutch gathered, and I'm going to destroy Bradley Shaw. Marcus studied her for a long moment, then nodded. Dutch said you'd say that, said you were Ruth's granddaughter right down to your bones. He stood. I'll help, whatever you need. Why, you barely know me. Because Dutch asked me to, because the Shaws killed my father before I ever really knew him, because somebody needs to end this, and I'd rather it be family. Family. The word settled into Emma's chest. Then we're family, and we have work to do. They shook hands. His grip was firm and warm. Outside, half a mile down the road, a black SUV sat in the shadow of trees. A man with binoculars watched the house, speaking into a phone. She's here. She's staying. She found someone named Marcus Webb. On the other end, Bradley Shaw leaned back in his leather chair. Webb, Dutch's bastard. I should have dealt with him years ago. Want me to handle it? No, let them dig. Let them think they're making progress. Shaw smiled. When they find what the old man hid, we'll take everything, including them. And the woman, she's pregnant. I don't care if she's carrying the second coming. When this is over, I want her gone. Her and that baby. Make it look like an accident. Make it look like the house finally killed someone who deserved it. Shaw hung up and poured himself a whiskey. Emma Dawson thought she'd inherited a house. She had no idea she'd inherited a war. 3 days after Emma arrived at the Dawson house, someone slashed all 4 of her tires. She discovered it at 7 in the morning, walking out to grab the box of supplies Marcus had promised to leave on the porch. The Honda sat in the driveway with its rims on the gravel rubber shredded like something had attacked it with a knife. Marcus pulled up 10 minutes later. He got out of his truck, looked at her car, and his face went hard. "When did this happen?" "Sometime last night. I didn't hear anything." "You wouldn't. Professionals know how to be quiet." He crouched beside the front tire, examining the cuts. "Clean slices, not random vandalism. Someone wanted to send a message." "What message?" "That they can get to you whenever they want." Marcus stood up. "This is how they work. Small things first. Intimidation. They want you scared and second-guessing before they make a real move." Emma's hand moved to her belly. Holland kicked, responding to the tension in her mother's body. "I'm not leaving." "I know." Marcus opened his truck bed and pulled out a toolbox. "That's why I brought supplies. We're going to the church today. Pastor Williams has the second cash." "You knew this would happen." "I expected it." He met her eyes. "Dutch warned me. Said the day someone actually stayed, things would get ugly fast. Shaw's people have been waiting for this." Emma looked at her ruined car. 4 new tires would cost money she didn't want to spend, but she had $87,000 in a vault under the well house. She could afford tires. She could afford a lot of things now. "Let's go to the church." The First Baptist Church of Harmony Falls sat on a hill at the edge of town. It was the only building Emma had seen that looked properly maintained. White paint, fresh steeple, straight gardens trimmed in green. Pastor Williams met them at the door. He was 82 years old, small, and weather-bearded with eyes that held decades of secrets. "Emma Dawson," his voice cracked with emotion, "I've been praying for this day for 15 years. You knew my grandfather." "Knew him, I buried him." The pastor stepped back, gesturing them inside. "Come, we have much to discuss, and I don't trust the walls in this town." The church was empty. Morning light streamed through stained glass, casting colored shadows across wooden pews. Pastor Williams led them to a small office in the back, closed the door, and locked it. "Dutch came to me in 2009, said he needed someone to hold something important, something that could get a person killed." The pastor sat heavily in his chair. "I told him I was an old man with nothing left to lose. If anyone came for me, I'd welcome the chance to meet my maker." "He gave you part of the evidence." "He gave me everything except the originals, copies, photographs, recordings." Pastor Williams opened a drawer and pulled out a key on a thin chain. "Safe deposit box at First National. In my name, but the contents belong to you now." Emma took the key. It was warm from being kept close to the old man's body. "There's money too," the pastor continued. $65,000, cash. Dutch added to it every month for years. Said it was insurance for whoever finally came to finish what he started. Marcus leaned forward. "Did he tell you where the originals are?" "No, he said the less I knew, the safer I'd be. But he told me something else." Pastor Williams looked at Emma with an intensity that made her uncomfortable. "He said when his granddaughter came, I should tell her about the night Ruth died." Emma's breath caught. "You know what happened?" "I know what Dutch told me, and I know what I saw with my own eyes." The pastor's hands trembled slightly. "The night Ruth died, I was driving home from a hospital visit. 11:30 at night, Highway 7. I saw her car go off the road. You were there. I was 100 yards behind her. I saw the whole thing." Pastor Williams closed his eyes. "There was another car, a black sedan. It came up fast behind Ruth, headlights off. It hit her bumper. Not hard enough to cause damage, but hard enough to startle her. She swerved. The sedan hit her again. She went through the guardrail and down the embankment." Emma couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. "I pulled over, ran to the edge. Her car was upside down and the creak wheels still spinning. By the time I got down there, she was gone." The pastor opened his eye. Tears streamed down his weathered cheeks. "The black sedan never stopped. Never even slowed down." "Did you tell the police?" "I told them exactly what I saw. They wrote it down, nodded politely, and the report said, single vehicle accident caused by black ice." Pastor Williams's voice turned bitter. "There was no ice that night. The road was dry. I checked. Dutch checked. We both knew." "Why didn't anyone listen?" "Because Vernon Shaw owned the sheriff. owned the prosecutor, owned half the judges in the state. The pastor shook his head. Dutch tried. God knows he tried. Filed complaints, wrote letters, made phone calls. Nothing happened. And 3 weeks after he started making noise, someone burned down his tool shed with all his equipment inside. A warning. Marcus spoke quietly. That's when he stopped fighting publicly. That's when he started fighting smart. Pastor Williams looked at Emma. Dutch spent the next 30 years gathering evidence in secret, patient, careful, building a case so strong that when the time came, nothing could stop it. And then he died. Heart attack. That's what the death certificate says. But I was with him the night before. He was healthy, strong for his age. We talked for 3 hours about you, Emma, about hoping you'd come, about everything he wanted to tell you. The pastor's voice broke. And the next morning, he was dead in his kitchen. You think they killed him? I think Dutch was about to do something, make a move, and someone decided he'd lived long enough. Pastor Williams reached across and gripped Emma's hand. That's why you need to be careful. Whatever Dutch was planning, they stopped it. They'll try to stop you, too. Emma looked at the key in her hand. $65,000. More evidence. Another piece of her grandfather's puzzle. I'm not stopping. I know. The pastor smiled sadly. You have Ruth's eyes. She never stopped either. That's what got her killed. They left the church with the safe deposit key and a folder of documents Pastor Williams had kept in his personal files. Copies of Dutch's complaints. Photographs of the crash site. A handwritten timeline of every suspicious event that had happened to the Dawson family since 1987. Marcus drove while Emma read through the papers. Her hands shook as the scope of what her grandfather had documented became clear. He tracked everything, she whispered. Every accident, every fire, every person who crossed the Shaws and suffered for it. Dutch was methodical, military training. Marcus kept his eyes on the road. He knew he couldn't win a direct fight, so he built an arsenal instead. Information, evidence, proof. There are names in here. People who might have witnessed things. People who might know where the originals are hidden. Most of them are dead, or gone. Shaw's been cleaning house for years. Emma flipped to the last page and froze. A photograph. Black and white. 2 young men in military uniforms, arms around each other's shoulders, grinning at the camera. That's Dutch, Marcus said, glancing over. The other one is Vernon Shaw, before everything went wrong. They were friends. Best friends, grew up together, enlisted together, went to Korea together. Marcus's jaw tightened. And then Shaw decided gold was more important than honor, and everything changed. Emma stared at the photograph. Her grandfather, young and hopeful, the man who had become his enemy, 2 boys who had no idea what was coming. Shaw betrayed his best friend. Shaw betrayed everyone. That's who he was. That's who his son is. Marcus pulled into the bank parking lot. Let's get what's in that safe deposit box. The bank manager looked nervous when Emma presented the key and Pastor Williams' authorization letter. He made 3 phone calls, consulted with someone in a back office, and finally led them to the vault with an expression that suggested he wished he'd called in sick. The box was large, heavy. When Emma opened it, she understood why. Cash. Stacks of it. More than she'd found in the well house vault. She counted quickly. 65,000 exactly as Pastor Williams had said. But there was more. A thick envelope marked Bradley Shaw, current operations. Emma opened it and pulled out photographs. Recent ones. Bradley Shaw meeting with men in suits outside a construction site. Bradley Shaw handing an envelope to someone who looked like a politician. Bradley Shaw standing over a map with a red line drawn through Harmony Falls. The highway, Marcus breathed. Dutch figured it out. What highway? There's been talk for years about a new interstate connector. Would run right through this area. The route hasn't been finalized, but Shaw's been buying up property like he knows something nobody else does. Emma shuffled through more photos. Land surveys. Property records. A map showing Shaw Development's acquisitions over the past 5 years. A perfect corridor cutting through Harmony Falls. He's buying the route before it's announced. Insider information. Probably bribed someone in the state transportation department. Marcus pointed to one of the photographs. That's Senator Morrison. He's on the infrastructure committee. My grandfather was documenting Shaw's current crimes, not just the old ones. Dutch knew the Korea evidence alone might not be enough. Statutes of limitations, lack of witnesses. Shaw's lawyers could have tied it up for years. Marcus's voice held respect. So he kept building, kept finding new dirt. Bradley Shaw has been breaking laws his whole life. Dutch made sure there was proof. Emma put everything back in the box except the envelope of recent photographs, those she kept. "We need to find the originals, the mine on the North Ridge." "Not yet." Marcus's tone was sharp. "Shaw's people are watching. If we go straight there, we lead them right to it." "Then what do? We make them think we haven't found anything important. We go back to the house, we wait, we watch." He met her eyes. "And we figure out who else might be watching in us." They drove back to the Dawson property in silence. Emma's mind raced through everything she'd learned. Her grandmother murdered? Her grandfather spending decades building a case? Shaw's people still operating, still corrupt, still dangerous. And now she had over $150,000 in evidence that could bring down one of the most powerful families in West Virginia. The question was what to do with it. As they pulled up to the house, Emma saw something that made her blood run cold. A black sedan was parked in her driveway. 2 men in suits stood on her porch. "Stay in the truck," Marcus said. "No." Emma was already opening her door. "This is my house, my property. They don't get to intimidate me." She walked toward the porch with her heart pounding, but her face calm. The 2 men watched her approach with expressions that revealed nothing. "Mrs. Dawson." The taller one stepped forward. "I'm Gerald Morrison. This is my associate, Mr. Pike. We represent Shaw Development." "I know who you represent." Morrison smiled. It didn't reach his eyes. "Mr. Shaw has authorized us to make you an offer. $250,000 for the property. Cash, immediate closing." "The property isn't for sale. Mrs. Dawson, please. You're a pregnant woman living alone in a condemned house. You have no income, no support system. $250,000 would allow you to start over somewhere comfortable, somewhere safe. Somewhere far away from whatever Shaw is afraid I'll find." Morrison's smile flickered. "I don't know what you mean." "I think you do." Emma stepped closer. "I think your boss has been trying to get into this house for 30 years. I think he's scared of what my grandfather knew, and I think he sent you here to make me an offer I can't refuse before I figure out what that is." "Mrs. Dawson, the answer is no. The answer will always be no. Now get off my property before I call the sheriff." Pike spoke for the first time. His voice was soft, cold. "The sheriff is a friend of Mr. Shaw's." "Then I'll call the state police, or the FBI, or the newspaper." Emma's voice didn't waver. "My grandfather kept records of every crime your boss's family has committed for 3 generations. I've already found some of them. I'll find the rest. And when I do, Bradley Shaw is going to prison." Morrison and Pike exchanged a look. Something passed between them. Agreement? Decision. "You're making a mistake," Morrison said quietly. "This property has a history of accidents. Terrible things happen to people who stay here too long." "Is that a threat?" "It's a friendly warning, for your safety, and the safety of that baby." Emma felt Marcus move up behind her, solid, protective. "I think the lady told you to leave." Morrison studied Marcus for a long moment. "Mr. Webb? I wondered when you'd show up. Shaw always said you were the old man's loyal dog." "Better a loyal dog than a bought one." The tension stretched. For a moment, Emma thought something was about to happen. Something violent. She could feel it in the air, that charge before a storm breaks. Then Morrison stepped back. "Think about our offer, Mrs. Dawson. It won't stay on the table forever." The 2 men walked to their sedan and drove away. Emma didn't realize she was shaking until Marcus put a hand on her shoulder. "You okay?" "No." She wrapped her arms around herself. "But I meant what I said. Every word." "I know." Marcus's voice was warm, proud. Dutch would have loved seeing that. That night, Emma couldn't sleep. She sat in the kitchen with Dutch's journal reading entries she'd missed before. One from 1995 caught her attention. "Bradley came to see me today, first time since Vernon's funeral. He wanted to buy the property, offered twice what it's worth. When I refused, he smiled and said accidents happen in old houses. I told him to get out. He said I should think about Margaret, think about what happened to Ruth. I told him if anything happened to my daughter, I'd burn his whole world down and I'd make sure everyone knew why." Emma turned the page. "Bradley backed off, for now, but I know he's waiting, watching. The evidence is my only protection. As long as he thinks I might have already given it to someone, he can't risk killing me. But Margaret is scared. She wants to leave, wants to take Emma and disappear. Maybe she's right. Maybe keeping this fight going is selfish. But I can't let Ruth's death mean nothing. I can't let Shaw win." The next entry was dated 3 weeks later. "Margaret left, took Emma, said she couldn't live like this anymore, said I was choosing my revenge over my family. Maybe she's right, but I didn't choose this. Vernon chose it when he killed my wife. All I'm doing is refusing to let him get away with it." Emma closed the journal. Her eyes burned with tears she refused to shed. Her mother had been right to leave, right to take Emma away from this house of secrets and danger. But she'd also been wrong to cut off all contact. Wrong to let Emma grow up not knowing her grandfather, not understanding what he was fighting for. "You should have told me," Emma whispered to the empty kitchen. "Both of you. You should have trusted me." A knock on the door made her jump. She grabbed the cast iron skillet and approached carefully. "Who's there?" "Dorothy Chen. I live down the road. I knew your grandfather." Emma opened the door. An elderly Chinese woman stood on the porch holding a casserole dish covered in foil. "It's 11 o'clock at night." "I know. I couldn't sleep either." Dorothy's eyes were sharp despite her age. "I saw the Shaw men come today. I saw them leave, and I thought you might need someone to talk to." Emma stepped back, letting her in. "Did my grandfather send you too?" "Dutch didn't send me anywhere, but he did tell me about you, showed me pictures, talked about you constantly toward the end." Dorothy set the casserole on the kitchen table. "He loved you, Emma, more than you'll ever know." "Everyone keeps telling me that, but he never reached out, never tried to see me." "Your mother forbade it, and Dutch respected that. He thought keeping his distance was the only way to keep you safe." Dorothy sat down heavily. "He was wrong, I told him so, but Dutch was stubborn. Once he made a decision, nothing could change his mind." "What do you know about what he was doing, the evidence he gathered?" Dorothy was quiet for a long moment. "I know he was building something, a case. I know he believed that someday someone would come who could use it. And I know he was running out of time." "What do you mean?" "The week before he died, Dutch came to see me. He was agitated, excited. He said he'd found something new, something that changed everything." Dorothy's voice dropped. "He said Bradley Shaw had made a mistake, a big one, and Dutch finally had proof." Emma leaned forward. "What proof?" "He didn't tell me. Said it was safer if I didn't know, but he said it was in the mine, the old Dawson mine on the North Ridge. That's where he kept the originals, everything that mattered." "How do I get there?" "There's a path from the back of the property, overgrown now, but still passable. The mine entrance is hidden behind a rock formation. Dutch showed me once years ago." Dorothy reached into her pocket and pulled out a hand-drawn map. "I made this from memory. It might help." Emma took the map. Her hands trembled. "Why are you helping me?" Dorothy's eyes filled with tears. "Because Ruth was my best friend. Because I was there when they killed her. Because I've spent 30 years being too scared to do anything about it, and I'm tired of being scared." "You saw what happened?" "I was in the car with Pastor Williams. We were coming back from the hospital together. His wife was dying. I was keeping him company." Dorothy's voice hardened. "I saw that black sedan. I saw what it did, and I saw Vernon Shaw behind the wheel." Emma felt the room tilt. "Vernon Shaw was driving with his own hands. He wanted it personal, wanted Dutch to know that he'd done it himself." Dorothy wiped her eyes. "The pastor reported what we saw. Nobody listened, and Vernon Shaw lived another 20 years before cancer finally took him." "Does Bradley know you saw—" "I don't think so. Pastor Williams never named me in his report, said he was protecting me." Dorothy stood up. "But I'm done being protected. I'm 81 years old. I've lived my life. What more can they do to me?" After Dorothy left, Emma sat alone in the kitchen staring at the hand-drawn map, the mine, the originals, everything Dutch had spent his life gathering. It was all there waiting for her. But so was danger. Shaw's people were watching. If she went to the mine now, they'd follow. They'd take everything, and then they'd take her. She needed a plan, a way to get to the mine without being seen, a way to retrieve the evidence and get it somewhere safe before Shaw could stop her. Emma pulled out her phone. It was almost midnight, but she called Marcus anyway. He answered on the second ring. "What's wrong?" "I know where the originals are. Dorothy Chen just told me." Silence. Then, "Don't say anything else on the phone. I'll be there in 10 minutes. He was there in 8. They sat in the kitchen with the lights off, talking in whispers, even though Emma had checked every window and Ditzelmitz door. "The mine is a problem," Marcus said after studying Dorothy's map. "There's only one path. If Shaw's people are watching, they'll see us go. Then we need to distract them." With what? Emma thought about it. The money, the evidence she'd already found, the photographs of Bradley Shaw committing current crimes. What if we give them something else to focus on? Like what? Like a fire. Marcus stared at her. "You want to burn something?" "Not the house, but there's an old shed at the back of the property. full of rotted wood and junk. If it caught fire, everyone would be looking at that, not at us. That's arson. It's my shed, my property. Emma's voice was cold, determined. Shaw's people have been intimidating this family for 40 years. They slashed my tires. They threatened my baby. I'm done playing by rules they don't follow. Marcus was quiet for a long moment. Then he nodded slowly. Dutch would have approved. When do we do it? Tomorrow night. I'll set up the fire, time delayed. When it starts, you head for the mine. I'll stay behind, make sure the distraction works. What if something goes wrong? Something always goes wrong. Marcus met her eyes. But we do it anyway. That's what Dutch taught me. You can't wait for the perfect moment. You take the moment you have, and you make it work. Emma nodded. Tomorrow night, the mine, the evidence that could destroy Bradley Shaw, and then the real fight would begin. The next morning brought another visitor. This one Emma didn't expect. A woman in her 50s, well-dressed, nervous, standing on the porch with a folder clutched to her chest. Mrs. Dawson, my name is Patricia Morrison. My husband visited you yesterday. Emma's hand moved toward the skillet she'd started keeping by the door. I remember. I'm not here for Shaw. I'm here despite Shaw. Patricia glanced around nervously. Can I come in? Please, I don't have much time. Something in the woman's voice made Emma step back. Fear. Genuine fear. Patricia rushed inside and closed the door behind her. My husband doesn't know I'm here. If he finds out, he'll... She stopped, collected herself. Gerald has worked for the Shaws for 30 years. He's done things, terrible things, things that keep him awake at night. Why are you telling me this? Because he's been talking in his sleep, about you, about what they're planning. Patricia opened the folder. I found these in his briefcase. Copies. He keeps copies of everything. Insurance, he calls it. Emma took the folder. Inside were documents, communications, a paper trail connecting Bradley Shaw to a dozen illegal activities. Why would you give me this? Because I'm tired. Patricia's voice broke. Tired of pretending. Tired of watching my husband become someone I don't recognize. Tired of being afraid. She met Emma's eyes. My father was a veteran. He came home from Vietnam broken, and the VA system failed him. He died on the street while politicians like Vernon Shaw got rich. I've been carrying that anger my whole life. If Shaw finds out, he'll kill me, I know, but maybe that's better than living like this. Patricia straightened. Use what's in that folder. Make it count. And please, whatever you do, don't tell anyone I was here. She was gone before Emma could respond. Emma spread the documents on the kitchen table. Her hands shook as she read through them. Bribes, payoffs, construction contracts with inflated costs, land deals that violated federal regulations, and something else. A memo from 6 months ago. R.E. Dawson property. Recommend immediate action before a new heir arrives. Dutch was preparing to go public. Must assume evidence exists and recover before it can be distributed. They knew. Shaw's people had known Dutch was about to make a move, and they'd stopped him. You were murdered, Emma whispered. Just like Ruth, they killed you. The grief hit her like a wave. Her grandfather, who she'd never really known, who had spent his life protecting her from a distance, who had died alone in his kitchen, killed by the same people who had killed his wife. Emma let herself cry. For 5 minutes. 10. Then she dried her eyes, gathered the documents, and started planning. Tonight. The mine. Everything her grandfather had gathered, waiting for her to find it. And Shaw's people watching, waiting for her to make a mistake. But Emma had something they didn't expect. Evidence from inside their own organization. A weapon they'd created themselves. She looked at her belly. Holland kicked. We're going to finish this, baby girl. For your great-grandmother Ruth. For your great-grandfather Dutch. For everyone the Shaws have ever hurt. The baby kicked again, like agreement, like courage. Emma smiled. For the first time since Ryan died, she felt something other than grief. She felt ready. The sun set at 6:47 p.m. Emma watched it disappear behind the tree line, her heart pounding against her ribs. You sure about this? Marcus asked. He was loading supplies into a backpack. Flashlights, water, a first aid kit. No. Emma's voice was steady despite her fear. But I'm doing it anyway. Dutch said the same thing the night before he died. Marcus zipped the bag closed. He called me at midnight. Said he was going to the mine in the morning. Said it was time. What happened? I don't know. I told him to wait for me. He said he'd be fine. 6 hours later, he was dead in his kitchen. Emma felt ice slide down her spine. You think they followed him, caught him before he could get there? I think Dutch made a mistake. He went alone. He thought he could do it by himself. Marcus handed her the backpack. You're not making that mistake. I'm going with you. What about the fire, the distraction? Already set. Gasoline-soaked rags on a timer. The shed goes up at 8 o'clock. By then, we need to be halfway to the mine. Emma looked at the clock on the kitchen wall. 7:15, 45 minutes. Let's go. They left through the back door, moving through the overgrown yard toward the tree line. The grass was wet with evening dew. Emma's feet slipped twice, and both times Marcus caught her arm before she could fall. Careful, the path gets worse. I'm 8 months pregnant. Everything is careful. They reached the edge of the woods just as darkness settled completely. Marcus clicked on a flashlight, keeping the beam pointed at the ground. Stay close, don't make noise. Shaw's people might have someone watching the back of the property, too. How do you know they don't? I don't. That's why we're being careful. The path Dorothy had marked on her map was barely visible. Decades of neglect had turned it into a maze of fallen branches and overgrown brush. Emma pushed through, ignoring the scratches on her arms and the ache in her lower back. 20 minutes in, Marcus stopped, held up his hand. What? Emma whispered. Listen. She held her breath. At first, nothing. Then she heard it. Footsteps. Behind them. Coming closer. Move! Marcus's voice was barely audible. Faster. They pushed forward, no longer trying to be quiet. The footsteps behind them increased in pace, matching theirs. Whoever was following knew they'd been heard. There. Marcus pointed ahead. A rock formation rose from the forest floor, massive and ancient. The mine entrance is behind that. Emma ran. Her body screamed in protest. The baby shifted, pressing against her bladder. She ignored it all. They reached the rocks just as their pursuer broke through the trees behind them. Stop! Emma turned. A man in dark clothes, breathing hard, a gun in his hand. One of Shaw's people. Don't move. Either of you. Marcus stepped in front of Emma. Let her go. She's pregnant. I can see that. The man's voice was cold. Mr. Shaw doesn't care. He wants what's in that mine. You're going to get it for him. And if we refuse... The man raised the gun, pointed it at Emma's belly. Then I shoot the baby first. Then the mother. Then you. Emma felt something break inside her. Not fear, rage, pure white-hot rage that burned away everything else. My grandmother was murdered by your boss's father. My grandfather was murdered by your boss. And now you're threatening to kill my daughter. Her voice shook, but not with weakness, with fury. You have no idea what I'm capable of. Lady, I don't care what you're... The explosion cut him off. The shed, the fire, it was early. Something had gone wrong. The man turned toward the sound just for a second. Marcus moved. He hit the gunman low, driving his shoulder into the man's midsection. They went down together, struggling for the weapon. Emma heard grunting, cursing, the sound of fists hitting flesh. A gunshot, deafening in the quiet forest. Marcus! She ran toward them, not knowing what she'd do, not caring. But Marcus was standing up. The gunman wasn't. He's alive. Marcus's voice was shaky. Shot himself in the leg when we were fighting for the gun. He's not going anywhere. Emma looked at the man writhing on the ground, clutching his thigh. Blood seeped between his fingers. Leave him. Emma. I said leave him. He was going to kill my baby. Let him bleed. They found the mine entrance behind the rocks, hidden under a pile of brush that had been deliberately placed. Marcus pulled away the branches, revealing a wooden door set into the hillside. Locked? He examined the mechanism. Combination padlock, 3 numbers? Try Ruth's birthday. Emma's voice was distant, still processing what had just happened. October 15th, 1932. Marcus tried. Nothing. Their wedding anniversary, October 15th, 1962. Click. The lock opened. They pulled open the door. The darkness beyond was absolute. Stay here, Marcus said. Let me check it first. No, Emma stepped past him. I'm done waiting. I'm done being protected. Whatever's in there, I need to see it myself. The tunnel was narrow, cold. The air smelled of earth and age. Emma moved forward with one hand on the wall, Marcus's flashlight casting shadows ahead of them. 50 feet in the tunnel opened into a larger chamber. Marcus swept the light around the space. My God. Emma couldn't speak. The chamber was filled with boxes, dozens of them, wooden crates stamped with military markings, filing cabinets that looked like they'd been brought from an office, a desk with a typewriter and stacks of paper, and on the walls, photographs. Hundreds of photographs. Vernon Shaw, Bradley Shaw, politicians, businessmen, judges. "This isn't just evidence against the Shaws," Emma whispered. "This is evidence against everyone they ever worked with." Marcus opened one of the filing cabinets. Organized by year, going back to 1954. He pulled out a folder. Shaw's military records, court-martial proceedings that were never filed, witness statements. Emma went to the desk. The papers were covered in dust, but the writing was still legible. "These are Dutch's notes, his case files." She picked up a leather binder and opened it. He was building a prosecution, a complete criminal case. Names, dates, evidence, chains of custody. How long did this take him? Decades. His whole life. Emma felt tears on her cheeks. He spent 40 years alone in this mine, documenting crimes he couldn't stop, preparing for someone who might never come. She turned the pages. More notes, more evidence, and then she found something that made her blood freeze. A death certificate. Dutch's death certificate, with a handwritten note attached. Cause of death: potassium chloride injection, made to look like heart attack, administered by Gerald Morrison at Bradley Shaw's direction. Evidence preserved at Location 3. "Location 3? Marcus breathed. "What's Location 3? "I don't know, but Dutch knew they were going to kill him." Emma's voice cracked. "He knew, and he still—" A sound from the tunnel entrance. Voices, multiple people. "They found us." Marcus grabbed Emma's arm. "Is there another way out?" "I don't know. Dutch never mentioned—" "I'll find one. I'll hold them off." "Marcus, you can't—" "Emma." His voice was firm, quiet. "I've spent 15 years wishing I'd known my father better, wishing I'd had more time. Don't let my niece grow up the same way." He pressed the flashlight into her hands and moved toward the tunnel. "Marcus." "Go." Emma ran. She searched the chamber desperately, looking for another exit, another door, anything. The boxes and filing cabinets seemed to close in around her, voices at the tunnel entrance, shouting, the sound of a struggle. Then a gunshot. Another. Silence. Emma pressed herself against the far wall, trying to control her breathing. The flashlight shook in her hands. Footsteps in the tunnel, coming closer. "Mrs. Dawson," a voice she recognized. "Gerald Morrison, we know you're in there. Come out now and we won't hurt you." She didn't respond. "Mrs. Dawson, be reasonable. You're pregnant, alone. There's nowhere to run. Just give us what we came for, and this all ends peacefully." Still nothing. Morrison sighed. "Have it your way. Search the chamber. Find her." Emma heard them enter. Multiple sets of footsteps. She pressed further into the shadows, trying to make herself small behind a stack of crates. Her hand touched something on the wall. A handle, hidden in the darkness. She pulled it. A section of the wall swung inward, revealing another tunnel. Narrow. Barely wide enough for her body. Emma didn't hesitate. She squeezed through and pulled the door closed behind her. The new tunnel sloped upward. Emma moved as fast as she could, one hand on the wall, the other holding the flashlight. Behind her, she could hear Morrison's men discovering the hidden door. "She went this way, move." Emma ran. The tunnel curved, branched, curved again. She chose directions at random, hoping to lose her pursuers, hoping the maze would protect her. The tunnel ended at another door. This one wasn't locked. She pushed through and found herself outside on a hillside above the property. Below her, she could see the Dawson house. The shed was still burning flames reaching toward the sky, and Marcus was lying in the grass at the mine entrance, not moving. "No?" The word came out as a moan. "No, no, no." She started toward him, but headlights appeared on the road. Multiple vehicles, police cars. Emma dropped to the ground, hiding in the tall grass. The police cars pulled up to the house. Officers got out, but they weren't acting like officers responding to a fire. They were acting like they were searching for someone. "Spread out," a voice Emma didn't recognize. She couldn't have gotten far. Shaw's people. Even the police were Shaw's people. Emma crawled through the grass, away from the house, away from the mine, away from everything she'd worked for. The evidence was back there. Marcus was back there. But she couldn't help anyone if she was dead. She made it to the tree line just as the first officers started searching the hillside. Their flashlights swept the grass, coming closer. Emma ran into the darkness. She ran until her lungs burned and her legs threatened to give out. She ran until she reached a road she didn't recognize in a part of the county she'd never seen. A car approached. Emma's first instinct was to hide, but something made her step into the headlights instead. The car stopped. The driver's door opened. "Emma," Dorothy Chen's voice filled with worry. "Emma, what happened? I saw the fire. I saw the police. I drove around looking for Marcus." Emma collapsed against the old woman. "They shot Marcus. I don't know if he's alive." Get in now." Dorothy drove with the focus of someone half her age. She avoided the main roads, taking back routes Emma didn't know existed. "Where are we going?" "My house first, then somewhere safe." Dorothy's hands were tight on the wheel. "I have a nephew in Charleston. He's a federal prosecutor. Shaw can't touch him." "I left everything behind. The evidence, Dutch's files, everything." "Did you see what was in there?" "Enough? I saw enough." Emma's voice hardened. "Dutch had proof that Gerald Morrison killed him, on Shaw's orders. There's a death certificate with notes, and something called Location 3. Dorothy's breath caught. Location 3. Dutch mentioned that once. Said it was his insurance policy. Said if anything happened to him, Location 3 would finish the job. "What is it?" "I don't know, but I know who might." Dorothy glanced at her. "Ruth's sister, your great-aunt. She's still alive, living in a nursing home in Martinsburg." "I have a great-aunt." "Margaret never told you. Of course she didn't. She was too busy running from the past." Dorothy shook her head. "Miriam is 93 years old, sharp as a tack. She and Dutch were close after Ruth died. He visited her every month until he couldn't drive anymore." "Can you take me to her?" "Not tonight. Shaw's people will be watching the roads. We need to wait until morning." Dorothy pulled into a driveway Emma didn't recognize. "This is my nephew's hunting cabin." "He won't mind. No one knows about it except family." They went inside. Dorothy made tea while Emma sat at the kitchen table staring at nothing. "He might be alive." Dorothy set a cup in front of her. "Marcus is strong. He survived his mother's death. He survived finding out Dutch was his father. He'll survive this." "You don't know that." "No, I don't." Dorothy sat down across from her. "But I know that giving up now means everything Dutch worked for dies with you, and I know that's not what he would have wanted." Emma looked at the old woman. "You loved him, didn't you?" Dorothy's eyes filled with tears. "Not the way Ruth did. But yes, I loved him. Everyone who knew the real Dutch Dawson loved him. He was the best man I ever met, and he spent his whole life believing he wasn't good enough. Because he couldn't save Ruth. Because he couldn't save anyone. That's what he thought. But he saved you, Emma. He spent 40 years making sure you'd have everything you needed when you finally came home." The night passed slowly. Emma dozed on the couch, waking every few minutes from nightmares about gunshots and blood and Marcus lying still on the grass. At 6 a.m, Dorothy's phone rang. Emma sat up, heart pounding. Dorothy answered, listened. Her face went through several expressions. Shock? Relief? Worry? "He's alive," she said, hanging up. "Marcus is alive. They took him to the hospital in Charleston. Gunshot wound to the shoulder. Serious but not fatal." Emma closed her eyes. "Thank God." "There's more." Dorothy's voice was tense. "Pastor Williams called the federal authorities last night, the FBI. He gave them everything he had. Dutch's files, the photographs, all of it. Why? He said he saw the fire, saw the police acting strange. Figured Shaw was making his move and decided it was time to make his own." Dorothy sat down. "Emma, there are FBI agents in Harmony Falls right now. They've impounded everything at the mine. They're interviewing people." "Shaw will know they're coming." "Shaw already knows. According to Pastor Williams, Bradley Shaw left town 3 hours ago. Private jet. Nobody knows where he went." Emma felt the rage building again. After everything, after Ruth and Dutch and Marcus and all of it, Shaw was going to escape. "No." She stood up. "No, he doesn't get to run." "Emma, what are you—" "Location 3. I need to find out what it is. Dutch said it was his insurance policy, something that would finish the job even if he couldn't." "You need rest. The baby?" "The baby needs a world where men like Bradley Shaw face consequences." Emma grabbed her jacket. "Take me to Miriam, now." The nursing home was a 2-hour drive. Dorothy pushed the speed limit the whole way, checking the mirrors constantly for anyone following. Miriam was waiting for them when they arrived. 93 years old, tiny and fragile, but with eyes that burned with an intensity Emma recognized. Ruth's eyes, her grandmother's eyes, the same eyes she saw in the mirror every morning. "You look just like her." Miriam's voice was thin but strong. "Ruth, my sister, you look exactly like her." I never got to meet her. I know, Dutch told me. Miriam gestured to the chairs beside her bed. Sit. We don't have much time. Dutch warned me this day would come. He gave me something to hold for you. Location 3. Miriam smiled. Smart girl. Yes, location 3. She reached under her pillow and pulled out a key. Safe deposit box, First National Bank Martinsburg branch. In my name, but the contents are yours. Emma took the key. What's inside? I don't know the details, but Dutch told me it was his final weapon. Something Bradley Shaw couldn't escape, couldn't buy off, couldn't make disappear. Miriam's smile faded. He said if you ever came for this key, it meant things had gone very wrong. It meant you were in danger. It meant Shaw had to be stopped, no matter the cost. The FBI is already investigating. They have the evidence from the mine. Then why are you here? Miriam's eyes were sharp. Why do you need whatever Dutch left in that box? Emma thought about it. About Shaw running. About all the money and influence and connections that had protected his family for 3 generations. Because the FBI can be bought. Because evidence can disappear. Because Shaw has escaped justice his whole life and I won't let him escape again. Miriam nodded slowly. You're Ruth's granddaughter, all right. She never gave up either, even when she should have. She gripped Emma's hand with surprising strength. Finish it, Emma. For Ruth, for Dutch, for all of us who were too scared to do it ourselves. The bank was a 20-minute drive from the nursing home. Emma walked in alone, leaving Dorothy in the car as a lookout. The manager was suspicious. An elderly woman's safe deposit box being accessed by a pregnant stranger was apparently unusual. But Emma had the key, Miriam's authorization letter, and enough desperation in her eyes to convince him. The box was large. When Emma opened it, she understood why Dutch had called it his final weapon. Videos, memory cards, and USB drives, but also older formats. VHS tapes, beta cassettes, even reel-to-reel film canisters. And a letter written in Dutch's shaky hand. Emma, if you're reading this, then location 3 was necessary. That means Shaw has run or is about to. That means everything I gathered at the mine wasn't enough. These recordings are different. These aren't documents that can be questioned or photographs that can be explained away. These are confessions. Over the years, I recorded conversations with people who knew the truth. Some were willing participants. Some didn't know they were being recorded. I know that makes some of this inadmissible in court. I don't care. The tapes include Vernon Shaw bragging about Ruth's murder at a private dinner in 1998. I had a source on his catering staff. They include Bradley Shaw discussing bribery payments with Senator Morrison's chief of staff in 2015. I had a source in his security team. They include Gerald Morrison confessing to a priest in 2019. The priest was wearing a wire. He felt guilty for taking Shaw's money to cover up what he knew about Ruth. These recordings won't all hold up in court, but they'll hold up in the press. They'll hold up in public opinion, and once they're out there, nothing Shaw does will ever make them disappear. Don't give these to the FBI. Don't give them to any government agency. Give them to journalists, multiple journalists. Let them verify and release on their own timeline. The truth is the only weapon that can't be bought. I love you, Emma. I'm proud of you. Finish what I started. Dutch. Emma closed the box and took everything. Back in the car, she told Dorothy what she'd found. Recordings, confessions, Shaw bragging about killing Ruth. Dorothy's hands trembled on the steering wheel. After all these years. Dutch never stopped, never gave up. Even when he couldn't fight directly, he kept gathering weapons. Emma held the bag of recordings against her chest. Now I need to use them. How? I know a journalist, Ryan's friend from college. She works at the Washington Post now, investigative reporting. Emma pulled out her phone. I haven't talked to her since the funeral, but I think she'll want to hear what I have. You're sure you can trust her? I trust that she hates corrupt politicians more than she likes her career, and I trust that a story this big will be impossible to ignore. Emma made the call. Sarah Chen answered on the 3rd ring. Emma, is that you? I've been trying to reach you for months. After Ryan's funeral, you just disappeared. Sarah, I need help. I have a story, the biggest story you'll ever hear. Silence. Then I'm listening. Emma talked for 20 minutes. Ruth's murder, Dutch's evidence, the Shaw family's 40-year conspiracy, the FBI investigation, Bradley Shaw's escape. When she finished, Sarah was quiet for a long moment. You have proof of all this. I have recordings of Vernon Shaw confessing to murder. I have recordings of Bradley Shaw bribing government officials. I have documents connecting them to crimes going back to Korea. Where are you now? Martinsburg, West Virginia. Stay there. Don't talk to anyone else. I'm getting on a plane. Sarah's voice had changed. Professional now, focused. Emma, if what you're telling me is true, this is going to blow up. Shaw has friends everywhere, media connections, political allies. Once this starts, they're going to come after you. They've been coming after me since I was born. I'm done being scared. Then get ready, because after this story breaks, nothing is ever going to be the same. Emma hung up and looked at Dorothy. She's coming. What do we do until then? We wait, and we make copies of everything. Emma held up one of the USB drives. Dutch was right. The truth is the only weapon they can't buy, so we're going to spread it everywhere. They spent the next 6 hours making copies. Dorothy knew people. Friends from church, former colleagues, neighbors who'd been hurt by Shaw and never had recourse. By the time Sarah Chen arrived that evening, there were copies of Dutch's recordings in 17 different locations across 3 states. Sarah looked exactly how Emma remembered her. Sharp eyes, sharper questions. Show me everything. Emma did. The recordings, the documents, Dutch's notes and case files, Patricia Morrison's folder of current evidence. Sarah listened to Vernon Shaw's voice bragging about running Ruth off the road. Her face went pale. This is real. This is actually real. My grandmother, murdered? And he laughed about it. Sarah set down the headphones. Emma, this story is going to destroy the Shaw family. It's also going to make you the most famous widow in America. Are you ready for that? I don't care about fame, I care about justice. Then let's get to work. They worked through the night. Sarah recorded Emma's story, verified documents, made calls to sources who could corroborate details. By dawn, she had enough for a preliminary piece. My editor needs to see this before we publish. That's going to take at least 48 hours. Shaw is running. Every hour we wait, he gets further away. I know, but if we rush this and make a mistake, Shaw's lawyers will bury the story in litigation for years. Sarah gathered her materials. Trust me, Emma. I've been doing this for 15 years. The story will come out, and when it does, it's going to be airtight. She left for the airport at 7 in the morning. Emma stood at the window watching her go and felt something she hadn't felt in months. Hope. Then her phone rang, an unknown number. She answered. Mrs. Dawson. Bradley Shaw's voice, calm, cold. I understand you've been busy. Emma's blood turned to ice. How did you get this number? I get everything I want, Mrs. Dawson. That's how power works. Shaw paused. I'm calling to make you an offer. One final offer. Take the money from the safe deposit boxes. All of it. Sell the property. Walk away. Disappear with your daughter and never speak of this again. And if I refuse, then I will find you. I will find your journalist friend. I will find everyone you've shared information with, and I will make sure none of you are able to share anything ever again. Emma thought about Ruth run off a road by a man who laughed about it. She thought about Dutch murdered in his own kitchen for daring to seek justice. She thought about Marcus shot and bleeding, fighting to give her time to escape. Mr. Shaw, let me tell you something my grandfather wrote in his journal. He said the only weapon you can't buy is the truth, and right now the truth is in the hands of people you will never find, in places you will never reach, waiting to destroy everything you've built. Silence on the line. You're making a mistake. No, my grandfather made mistakes. He waited too long, trusted too few people, tried to fight alone. Emma's voice was steady, strong. I'm not making those mistakes. The truth is already out there, Mr. Shaw. Nothing you do can stop it now. She hung up, and for the first time since she'd arrived at the Dawson property, Emma smiled. The war wasn't over. Shaw was still dangerous. The FBI investigation might succeed or might be compromised. The newspaper story might publish or might be killed. But the truth was spreading. Dutch's lifework scattered across the country, waiting to emerge no matter what happened next. Emma put her hand on her belly. Holland kicked. We did it, baby girl. We finished what he started. Outside, the sun was rising over Martinsburg. A new day, a new chapter, and somewhere out there, Bradley Shaw was finally, truly afraid. 48 hours. Sarah Chen had said the story needed 48 hours before it could publish. Emma spent the first 12 of those hours at Marcus's bedside in Charleston General Hospital. He was alive, but pale, his shoulder wrapped in bandages, tubes running into his arm. You should be resting. His voice was weak, but his eyes were sharp. Not sitting here watching me sleep. I've been resting for 6 months. I'm done resting. Marcus tried to smile. It turned into a grimace. Did you find location 3? I found it. Recordings, confessions, everything Dutch couldn't put in writing. Emma leaned forward. Vernon Shaw bragging about killing Ruth, on tape, his own voice. Marcus closed his eyes. All those years, Dutch was building a bomb. And now it's about to go off. Emma took his hand. Shaw called me, threatened the journalist, everyone I've talked to. What did you tell him? That the truth is already out there, that nothing he does can stop it. Brave? Marcus squeezed her hand weakly. Stupid but brave. I learned from my grandfather. A nurse appeared at the door. Mrs. Dawson, there are 2 men here to see you. They say they're with the FBI. Emma's heart rate spiked. Send them in? The agents introduced themselves as Walker and Chen. No relation to Sarah, apparently. They were professional, careful, and very interested in everything Emma knew. We've secured the mine site, Agent Walker said. The evidence there is extensive. We're going to need your cooperation for the investigation. You'll have it, but I need something first. What? Protection. Shaw called me directly. He knows where I am. He's making threats. The agents exchanged looks. We can arrange protective custody. No? Emma's voice was firm. I'm not hiding in a safe house while Shaw's lawyers figure out how to make this go away. I want to be involved. I want to know what's happening. Mrs. Dawson, you're 8 months pregnant. This isn't... My grandmother was murdered. My grandfather was murdered. The man who killed them has been free for 40 years. I'm not sitting on the sidelines. Agent Chen leaned forward. We understand your frustration, but Shaw has resources, connections. If he decides to come after you directly, then I'll be ready. Emma met their eyes. I've been running my whole life. From my family, from the truth, from everything that scared me. I'm done running. The agents looked at each other again. Something passed between them. There's something you should know, Walker said slowly. Bradley Shaw hasn't just fled the country. He's making moves, liquidating assets, transferring funds offshore. It looks like he's preparing to disappear permanently. Can you stop him? We're working on it, but without the full evidence package, we can't get an arrest warrant fast enough. Walker paused. The recordings you mentioned, the ones from location 3, we need them. Emma thought about Dutch's instructions. Don't give these to the FBI. Don't give them to any government agency. Give them to journalists. The recordings are already with a journalist, Washington Post. The story publishes in 36 hours. Walker's face tightened. Mrs. Dawson, if those recordings go public before we can act, Shaw will know exactly what we have. He'll adjust his escape plan accordingly. And if I give them to you, they'll disappear into some evidence locker while Shaw's lawyers tie everything up in court for the next decade. Emma shook her head. I've seen how the system works. Dutch saw it too. That's why he wanted the truth in the press, not in the hands of people who can be bought. We're not. Maybe you're not. But someone in your chain of command is. Shaw's been buying government officials for 3 generations. You think the FBI is immune? Emma stood up. I'll cooperate with your investigation. I'll testify if you need me to, but the recordings go public as planned. She walked out before they could respond. Dorothy was waiting in the hallway. What did they want? The recordings. I said no. Good. Dorothy's voice was hard. Dutch didn't trust them. Neither should you. They drove back to the hunting cabin in silence. Emma's phone buzzed constantly. Sarah Chen with updates. Pastor Williams checking in. Numbers she didn't recognize that she let go to voicemail. At 3:47 p.m., her phone rang with a number from Harmony Falls. Mrs. Dawson, a voice she didn't know. Young, female, scared. This is Deputy Martinez from the sheriff's office. What do you want? I want to help. The words came out rushed. I know what Shaw's people have been doing. I've seen the reports they've buried, the complaints that disappeared. I became a cop to help people not cover up crimes. Why are you calling me? Because something is happening. Shaw's people are cleaning house, destroying evidence. I overheard the sheriff talking about files being burned at the courthouse tonight. Emma's blood ran cold. What files were everything connected to the Dawson family, Ruth's accident report, Dutch's complaints, all of it? Martinez's voice dropped. They're going to make it look like none of it ever happened. Can you stop them? Not alone. The sheriff is Shaw's man. So are most of the senior deputies. Martinez paused. But I have keys. I know when the cleaning crew comes. If someone was there before them, tell me where and when. Courthouse basement records room. Tonight at 11. The cleaning crew comes at midnight. Emma looked at Dorothy. I'll be there. Mrs. Dawson, be careful. If they catch you, then I'll have something else to tell the journalist. She hung up and turned to Dorothy. I need to go back to Harmony Falls. Tonight, Emma, you're in no condition. Shaw's people are burning evidence tonight. Ruth's accident report, the original documents Dutch filed. If those disappear, half the case disappears with them. The FBI needs a warrant. By the time they get one, everything will be ash. Emma grabbed her jacket. I'm going. You can come with me or stay here. Dorothy was quiet for a long moment. Then she picked up her keys. Ruth was my best friend. If there's a chance to save what's left of her story, I'm not staying behind. They reached Harmony Falls at 9:30 p.m. Emma had Dorothy drop her 2 blocks from the courthouse and park somewhere she could leave fast if things went wrong. 1 hour, Dorothy said. If you're not back in 1 hour, I'm calling everyone. FBI, press, everyone. If I'm not back in 1 hour, something went very wrong. Emma approached the courthouse from the back. The building was dark except for a few security lights. She found the basement entrance where Martinez had described and used the key the deputy had left hidden under a drainage grate. The records room was in the far corner of the basement. Rows of filing cabinets, boxes stacked to the ceiling, decades of Harmony Falls history waiting to be erased. Emma found the drawer marked Dawson within 3 minutes. The file was thick. Ruth's accident report, Dutch's complaints, witness statements that had never been followed up, photographs of the crash site that showed no ice on the road. She pulled it all and stuffed it into her bag. Then she heard voices. Someone's already here. Check the back. Emma ducked behind a row of cabinets, heart pounding. Shaw's people, Early, or Martinez had set her up. Footsteps came closer. Flashlight beams swept the room. Nothing. You're paranoid. The door was unlocked. Deputy Martinez has been in and out all week. Probably forgot to lock up. The footsteps stopped. Emma held her breath. Let's just torch the place and go. Shaw wants it done before midnight. The whole basement. Everything. Make it look electrical. Old building faulty wiring. Happens all the time. Emma heard the splash of liquid. Gasoline. They were going to burn the entire courthouse basement, with her inside it. She had maybe 2 minutes before they lit the match. The exit she'd come through was blocked by the men. She needed another way out. There. A window near the ceiling. Small, but she might fit. Emma moved as quietly as she could, dragging a chair under the window. Her pregnant belly made everything harder. She climbed up, pushed the window open, and started pulling herself through. Hey? They'd seen her. Emma squeezed through the window, feeling her shirt tear, feeling something scrape against her belly. She fell onto the grass outside and started running. Shouts behind her. Footsteps. She couldn't outrun them. Not like this. Then headlights. Dorothy's car screeching around the corner. Get in! Emma threw herself into the passenger seat. Dorothy floored it before the door was fully closed. In the rearview mirror, Emma saw flames erupting from the courthouse basement windows. They'd lit it anyway. Everything down there was burning. But she had Ruth's file. She had the original documents. Did you get it? Dorothy's voice was shaky. Emma held up the file. I got it. They saw you. I know. They'll come after us. Let them. Emma's voice was hard. Every move they make, every crime they commit trying to cover this up just gives us more evidence, more proof, more ammunition. They drove through the night, switching cars twice, using vehicles borrowed from Dorothy's network of friends. By dawn, they were in a motel outside Charleston, 2 hours from Harmony Falls, and hopefully off Shaw's radar. Emma's phone rang at 7:15 a.m. Sarah Chen. The courthouse burned last night. I know, I was there. Silence. You were what? Shaw's people were destroying evidence. I got there first. Emma looked at the file spread across the motel bed. I have Ruth's original accident report, witness statements, everything Dutch filed over the years. Emma, you could have been killed. But I wasn't, and now we have more than just recordings. We have paper proof that the sheriff's department buried evidence for 40 years. Sarah was quiet for a moment. The story publishes tomorrow, 6 a.m. Eastern, front page above the fold, online simultaneously. What about Shaw's lawyers? They've been calling all day, threatening injunctions, defamation suits, everything short of death threats. Sarah paused. Actually, a few death threats, too. Our security team is involved now. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to put you in danger. Are you kidding? This is the biggest story of my career. I'd do it again in a heartbeat. Sarah's voice softened. Emma, your grandfather spent 40 years waiting for someone to tell this story. Tomorrow the whole world hears it. After the call, Emma tried to sleep. Her body was exhausted. The baby was restless, kicking, constantly responding to the stress hormones flooding Emma's system. But her mind wouldn't stop. Tomorrow, everything changes tomorrow. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Your mother would be proud, even if she could never admit it. Patricia Morrison. Emma stared at the message. Patricia, Gerald Morrison's wife. The woman who'd given her the folder of current evidence. She typed back, "Is Gerald going to be arrested?" The response came quickly. "He's cooperating with the FBI, trading testimony for reduced charges. He's named everyone. Shaw is finished." Then another message. "They found Shaw. Private island in the Caribbean. No extradition treaty. He thinks he's safe." Emma felt rage building in her chest. After everything. After Ruth and Dutch and Marcus and all of it. Shaw was going to sit on a beach while the world learned about his crimes. "He won't get away with it," she typed back. "He already has. The rich always do." Emma threw the phone across the room. Dorothy came in from the adjoining room. "What happened?" "Shaw is in the Caribbean. No extradition." Emma's voice shook with fury. "He's just going to hide there while—" A sharp pain cut through her abdomen. Emma gasped and doubled over. "Emma!" Dorothy rushed to her side. "What is it?" Another pain? Stronger? Lower? "Something's wrong." Emma's voice came out as a whisper. "Something's wrong with the baby." Dorothy got her to the car in 3 minutes flat. Charleston General was 40 minutes away. Dorothy made it in 25, running every red light and daring anyone to stop her. The emergency room staff took one look at Emma and rushed her to labor and delivery. "You're in labor," the doctor said, not unkindly. 8 weeks early. We need to try to stop it." "Is the baby okay?" "The baby is stressed, so are you." The doctor was already ordering medications. "We're going to give you something to slow the contractions. You need to stay calm." Stay calm, right, with Bradley Shaw hiding in the Caribbean and her baby trying to come 2 months early. Perfectly calm. They pumped her full of drugs that made the room spin. The contractions slowed but didn't stop. Hours passed in a haze of beeping monitors and worried nurses. At 2:47 p.m., Marcus appeared in the doorway. "How did you—" Emma's voice was slurred from the medication. "Dorothy called. I checked myself out." He was still pale, his arm in a sling, but he was there. "I'm not letting you do this alone. The doctors said—" "The doctors can deal with it." Marcus sat down beside her bed. "I spent 15 years wishing I'd known my father. I'm not missing my niece's birth." "Niece," the word hit Emma somewhere deep. "We're family," she said. "Yeah." Marcus took her hand. "We are." The medication held the contractions at bay for 6 hours. Then, at 8:52 p.m., Emma's water broke. "We can't stop it anymore," the doctor said. "You're having this baby tonight." "She's too early." "She's early, but she's viable. We have a NICU team standing by. The best thing you can do now is focus on delivering safely." The next 3 hours were the hardest of Emma's life. The pain was unlike anything she'd imagined. Waves of agony that built and crashed and built again. She screamed. She cried. She cursed Ryan for dying. And Dutch for leaving her this burden and Shaw for being born at all. Marcus held her hand through every contraction. "Push," the doctor said. "Push Emma. She's almost here." One final tearing effort, and then crying. Tiny, perfect crying. "It's a girl." The doctor held up a squirming, red-faced infant. Small but strong, just like her mother. Holland Ruth Dawson was born at 11:47 p.m. weighing 4 pounds 6 ounces. She was whisked away to the NICU before Emma could hold her, but she was alive. She was breathing on her own. She was perfect. At 5:58 a.m., Sarah Chen's story went live. Emma watched it happen from her hospital bed phone in one hand, the other reaching toward the NICU where her daughter slept in an incubator. The headline screamed. Across the screen, Shaw family empire built on murder, 4 decades of corruption, cover-ups, and killing. Within an hour, it was the most read story on the Post's website. Within 2 hours, cable news had picked it up. By noon, Bradley Shaw's name was trending worldwide. The phone calls started immediately. Other journalists wanting interviews. Government officials wanting statements. Lawyers representing victims. Emma had never heard of people who'd been hurt by the Shaw family and never had recourse. And then at 2:34 p.m., the call that changed everything. "Mrs. Dawson," a voice she didn't recognize. "Official, important. This is Director Harrison with the Department of Justice. We've been following the Shaw case closely." "What do you want?" "To inform you that 30 minutes ago, a team of U.S. Marshals landed on Bradley Shaw's island. International pressure combined with the evidence your grandfather gathered gave us the leverage we needed." Emma's heart stopped. He's being arrested? He's being extradited. He'll face charges in federal court for conspiracy, bribery, obstruction of justice, and accessory to murder. Harrison paused. Your grandmother's case has been reopened. With the new evidence, including the recordings and the documents you recovered from the courthouse, we believe we can prove Vernon Shaw was responsible for her death. Vernon Shaw is dead. His son isn't. Under federal law, Bradley Shaw can be charged as an accessory for his decades of covering up the crime. He's looking at life in prison, Mrs. Dawson, thanks to you and your grandfather. Emma couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. Mrs. Dawson, are you still there? I'm here? Her voice was barely a whisper. I never thought... Your grandfather spent 40 years building this case. You finished it in 2 weeks. Harrison's voice held something that might have been admiration. Whatever happens next, know that you did something most people never manage. You held the powerful accountable. After the call, Emma lay in her hospital bed and cried. Not from sadness, not from fear, from release. 40 years of secrets. 40 years of justice delayed, and now finally it was over. Marcus came in and found her sobbing. What happened? Is it Holland? Shaw got arrested. Emma could barely get the words out. They're charging him with Ruth's murder, with everything. Marcus sat down heavily. It's over. It's over. They sat together in silence, processing the impossible. The fight that had consumed Dutch's entire life ended in 2 weeks by a pregnant widow with nothing left to lose. At 6:00 p.m., the nurses finally let Emma see her daughter. Holland was tiny, so impossibly tiny, but her eyes were open, and when Emma reached into the incubator to touch her hand, Holland's fingers wrapped around her thumb. Hey, baby girl, Emma's voice broke. I'm your mom, and I have so much to tell you. She told Holland about Ruth, about Dutch, about the house on Dawson Road, and the evidence hidden in mines and safe deposit boxes, about Marcus and Dorothy and Pastor Williams and all the people who had helped when help seemed impossible. Your great-grandmother was brave, Emma whispered. Your great-grandfather was stubborn. And you're going to be both. You're going to be everything they hoped for. The NICU nurse came to tell Emma she needed to rest, but before she left, she had one more thing to say. I'm naming you Holland Ruth, after the people who made sure you'd have a chance at life, after the ones who fought for 40 years so you could be free. Holland yawned. Her eyes drifted closed. Emma walked back to her room with Marcus beside her. What happens now? He asked. Now we rebuild. The house, the family, everything Dutch spent his life protecting. Emma stopped, looked at him. Your family, Marcus. You're all the family I have left. I'm not doing this alone. I'm not sure I know how to be family. I barely knew Dutch. I've been on my own most of my life. So have I. We'll figure it out together. Marcus nodded slowly. Then for the first time since Emma had met him, he smiled. Dutch would have liked this. Seeing his granddaughter take charge, seeing the family come back together. I wish he could have met Holland. Maybe he can see her, wherever he is. Marcus looked toward the NICU. Maybe he and Ruth are watching right now, proud of everything you've done. Emma wanted to believe that, needed to believe it. She walked to the window and looked out at the night sky. I did it, Grandpa, she whispered. I finished what you started. Ruth is getting justice. Shaw is going to prison. And your great-granddaughter is going to grow up in a world where the truth matters more than money. The stars didn't answer, but somewhere deep in Emma's heart, she felt a warmth that hadn't been there before. Peace. After everything, finally peace. Her phone buzzed, a text from Sarah Chen. Story has 4 million views, follow-up piece tomorrow. You're officially famous. Emma typed back, I don't want to be famous, I just want to go home. Where's home? Emma thought about it. The shelter that had kicked her out, the car she'd slept in for 2 months, the condemned house on Dawson Road that everyone called cursed. Harmony Falls, she typed. The house my grandfather built. That's home. Sarah's response came quickly. Then go home, Emma. You've earned it. 3 weeks later, Emma drove up Dawson Road with Holland strapped into a car seat beside her. The house looked different now. Marcus had been working on it since he got out of the hospital. New porch boards, fresh paint on the shutters, windows that weren't broken. Dorothy was waiting on the porch, Pastor Williams beside her, and a crowd of people Emma didn't recognize, neighbors who'd come to welcome her home. What is all this Harmony Falls taking care of its own? Dorothy smiled. Something we should have done 40 years ago. Emma got out of the car, unbuckled Holland, held her daughter close as she walked toward the house that had cost her family so much. The door was open. Inside, everything was clean. New furniture, fresh flowers, a crib in the corner of the living room, handmade by Marcus from wood he'd found in Dutch's workshop. On the mantel, 3 photographs. Ruth and Dutch on their wedding day, Margaret holding baby Emma, and a new one taken at the hospital, Emma holding Holland, whilst Marcus standing beside them, both of them smiling. Family. Broken and rebuilt. Lost and found. Emma sat down in the rocking chair by the window, the same chair Ruth had used 40 years ago. Holland slept in her arms, peaceful and safe. Outside, the sun was setting over Harmony Falls. The town that had kept secrets for 40 years was finally learning how to tell the truth. And in the house on Dawson Road, where everyone said terrible things happened, something wonderful was beginning. Emma looked at her daughter, at the home she'd inherited, at the family she'd found. "We're not cursed," she whispered. "We were never cursed." She thought about Bradley Shaw sitting in a federal prison waiting for a trial he couldn't buy his way out of. She thought about Dutch, who had spent his life building weapons he never got to use. She thought about Ruth finally getting the justice she'd been denied for 40 years. "We were just broke," Emma said. "And broke can be fixed." Holland opened her eyes, looked up at her mother with Ruth's eyes, Dutch's stubbornness, and for the first time in 40 years, the house on Dawson Road was filled with laughter. 6 months later, Emma sat in a federal courtroom in Washington, D.C., watching Bradley Shaw's face as the verdict was read. On the count of conspiracy to commit murder, we the jury find the defendant guilty. Shaw's expression didn't change. He'd worn that mask of arrogance through the entire trial. Through testimony after testimony, through recordings of his own voice discussing bribes and cover-ups. Even now, with his empire crumbling around him, he refused to show weakness. On the count of obstruction of justice, we the jury find the defendant guilty. Emma felt Marcus's hand tighten on hers. Dorothy sat on her other side, tears streaming down her weathered cheeks. Pastor Williams was in the row behind them, head bowed in prayer. On the count of accessory to murder after the fact, we the jury find the defendant guilty. The courtroom erupted. Reporters rushed for the exits, desperate to be first with the news. Shaw's lawyers huddled together, already planning appeals that would never succeed. And at the prosecution table, the team that had built their case on Dutch Dawson's 40 years of evidence allowed themselves small, satisfied smiles. On all remaining counts, we the jury find the defendant guilty. Guilty. On every single charge. Life in prison without possibility of parole. Emma closed her eyes and thought about her grandfather. About all those nights he'd spent alone in that mine documenting crimes he couldn't stop building weapons he hoped someone would use. About Ruth, whose murder had finally been acknowledged by a court of law 43 years after she'd been run off that road. "It's over," Marcus whispered. "No." Emma opened her eyes. "It's just beginning." The press conference afterward was chaos. Cameras everywhere, microphones shoved in Emma's face, questions shouted from every direction. "Mrs. Dawson, how does it feel to see Bradley Shaw convicted? What do you want to say to the victims of the Shaw family? Will you be writing a book about your grandfather's investigation?" Emma stepped up to the microphone and waited for silence. 43 years ago, my grandmother Ruth was murdered on Highway 7. The man who killed her bragged about it at dinner parties. His son spent decades covering it up, and for 43 years, my grandfather fought alone to bring them to justice. She paused. The crowd was silent. Dutch Dawson didn't live to see this day. Neither did my grandmother or the dozens of other people the Shaw family hurt over the years. But they're here, in spirit, in the evidence they gathered and the truth they refused to let die. Emma felt tears building but refused to let them fall. Not here, not in front of the cameras. "I came to Harmony Falls 8 months ago with $300, a baby in my belly, and nowhere else to go. I found a house everyone called cursed. I found secrets that should have destroyed my family forever. Instead, they saved us." She looked directly into the nearest camera. To everyone out there fighting battles that seem impossible, holding on to truths that powerful people want buried, don't give up. Justice might take 40 years. It might take longer. But if you build your case carefully, if you trust the right people, if you refuse to stop believing that the truth matters, eventually the world will listen. The question started again, but Emma was done. She stepped away from the microphone and walked toward the courthouse exit, Marcus and Dorothy flanking her like bodyguards. A woman stepped into her path. Older. Elegant. Eyes that held decades of pain. "Mrs. Dawson, my name is Catherine Shaw, Bradley's wife." Emma stopped. Her first instinct was anger. This woman had lived with a monster for 30 years, had benefited from crimes she must have known about. But something in Catherine's expression gave her pause. Not arrogance, not hostility, shame. "What do you want?" "To apologize." Catherine's voice was barely above a whisper. "I knew. Not everything, but enough. I told myself it wasn't my business. Told myself Bradley's family history wasn't my responsibility. I was wrong." "You could have stopped him." "I could have tried." Catherine's eyes filled with tears. "I was a coward. Just like your grandfather said he was. The difference is Dutch spent his life trying to make up for his cowardice. I spent mine pretending it didn't exist." Emma studied the woman for a long moment. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because I want you to know that not everyone in that family was blind to what was happening. My daughter Victoria, she's been gathering evidence against her father for years. She's the one who told Patricia Morrison where to find the files in Gerald's briefcase." Emma felt the ground shift beneath her feet. "Your daughter helped us. She couldn't testify. Bradley would have destroyed her, but she fed information to people who could use it. She's the reason the FBI knew where to find Bradley in the Caribbean." Catherine's voice hardened. "Victoria wanted her father stopped as much as anyone. She just couldn't do it openly. Why are you telling me now?" "Because it's over. Because Victoria deserves recognition for what she did, even if she can't claim it publicly. And because I want you to know that sometimes justice comes from unexpected places." Catherine pressed something into Emma's hand. A business card. "Victoria Shaw, attorney at law. If you ever need anything, legal help, resources, someone who understands what it's like to be trapped in a family legacy of violence." Catherine stepped back. Victoria would want to help. It's her way of making amends. She disappeared into the crowd before Emma could respond. Marcus looked at the business card. "Did you know about this?" "No?" Emma tucked the card into her pocket. "But it explains some things. How the FBI moved so fast. How certain evidence showed up exactly when we needed it. Shaw's own daughter helped bring him down. Seems like betrayal runs in the family." Emma's voice held no satisfaction. "The difference is Victoria chose to betray evil. Her father chose to betray everything else. They flew back to West Virginia that evening. Holland was with a babysitter, one of the church members, who had adopted Emma and her daughter into their community. The baby was 10 months old now, hitting every developmental milestone despite her early birth. The house on Dawson Road had been transformed. 6 months of work by Marcus and a crew of volunteers had turned it from a condemned ruin into something beautiful. Fresh paint, new roof, gardens that bloomed with flowers Ruth had planted decades ago, seeds that had somehow survived in the overgrown beds. Emma walked through the front door and found Holland asleep in her crib, the babysitter reading quietly in the corner. "She was an angel," Mrs. Patterson whispered. "Ate everything, played for hours, went down without a fuss." "Thank you for watching her." "Thank me, honey, it's an honor." Mrs. Patterson gathered her things. "That little girl is going to grow up knowing she comes from heroes. That's worth more than all the babysitting in the world." After Mrs. Patterson left, Emma sat beside Holland's crib and watched her daughter sleep. "We did it, baby girl. Shaw is going to prison forever. Your great-grandmother finally got justice." Holland stirred but didn't wake. Her tiny hands curled into fists even in sleep, ready to fight. "You're going to be something special. You know that Dutch's determination, Ruth's courage, maybe even some of your daddy's kindness, even though you never got to meet him." Emma thought about Ryan, about the life they'd planned together, the nursery he'd been picking paint for when the drunk driver ended everything. "I wish you could see her," she whispered to the empty room. "I wish you could see what she's going to become." A knock on the door made her jump. Marcus was standing on the porch, a bottle of wine in one hand and 2 glasses in the other. "Thought you might want to celebrate." "I'm not sure celebration is the right word." Emma stepped back to let him in. "It feels more like exhaling, like I've been holding my breath for months and finally I can stop." "That's worth celebrating too." They sat on the porch swing that Marcus had rebuilt from Dutch's original design. The night was warm summer, settling over Harmony Falls, with a gentleness the town hadn't felt in decades. "What happens now?" Marcus asked. "I've been thinking about that." Emma took a sip of wine. "The insurance money from Dutch's policies came through, plus the settlement from Shaw's estate. Between that and what was in the safe deposit boxes, I have more money than I ever imagined. Enough to leave, start over somewhere else. Enough to stay, build something here." Emma looked out at the properties she'd inherited. "Dutch spent his life documenting crimes. I want to spend mine preventing them." "What do you mean, a foundation?" "For victims of powerful people. Legal aid, investigation resources, a place where people who've been silenced can come and find help exposing the truth." Emma turned to face Marcus. "I want to call it the Ruth Dawson Foundation. I want it to be Dutch's real legacy." Marcus was quiet for a long moment. "That's going to make you a target. Powerful people don't like foundations that expose their crime." "I've already been a target. Shaw threatened my daughter. His people burned down a courthouse. I survived." Emma's voice was steady. "I'm not afraid anymore, Marcus. Fear is what kept Dutch from going public for 40 years. Fear is what let the Shaws get away with murder. I'm done letting fear make my decisions." "Then I'm in." Marcus raised his glass. "To the Ruth Dawson Foundation, and to the family that's going to build it." They clinked glasses as fireflies began to dance across the lawn. The foundation launched 3 months later, operating out of the Dawson house with Emma as executive director and Marcus handling operations. Sarah Chen wrote the announcement piece for the Washington Post, and within a week they'd received over 200 requests for help. Cases poured in from across the country: small-town corruption, corporate cover-ups. Families who'd been fighting for decades against enemies with unlimited resources. Emma reviewed every request personally, looking for the ones where evidence existed but needed organization, where victims needed support to come forward, where truth was waiting to be uncovered. Their first major case came from Oklahoma. A chemical company had been poisoning groundwater for 20 years, paying off local officials to bury health reports. 3 families had gathered evidence but couldn't afford lawyers. The Ruth Dawson Foundation connected them with pro bono legal help, funded an independent water analysis, and put Emma in touch with a journalist who'd been trying to expose the story for years. 6 months later, the company was shut down. The executives faced criminal charges, and the families finally got the settlement they'd deserved for decades. "This is what Dutch wanted," Emma told Marcus after the verdict came in. "Not just his own case. He wanted to build something that would outlast him, something that would keep fighting after he was gone. He built you. He built us, all of us." Emma looked at the photograph on her desk. Dutch and Ruth on their wedding day, young and hopeful, unaware of the darkness coming. "Now we build on what he started." Holland's first birthday party was held in the backyard of the Dawson house. 50 people came. Neighbors, foundation volunteers, victims they'd helped. Dorothy and Pastor Williams, even Deputy Martinez, who'd resigned from the sheriff's department and was now studying to become a civil rights lawyer. Emma watched her daughter smash cake with both hands, laughing at the mess she was making, and felt something she'd almost forgotten existed. Joy, pure, uncomplicated joy. "She's going to be a handful." Marcus appeared beside her, a piece of cake in his hand. "Already has opinions about everything. She comes by it honestly." Emma smiled. 3 generations of stubborn women. The world doesn't stand a chance." "Speaking of generations," Marcus hesitated. "I've been thinking about something. About the family thing." "What about it?" "I never had kids. Never really wanted them. My life was too unstable, too focused on work and then on watching over Dutch's property." He paused. "But being here, being part of Holland's life, it's changed something." "Marcus, I'm not asking for anything. I know I'm just the uncle, the helper. That's enough." He met her eyes. "I just want you to know that this past year has been the best of my life. Having a family, having a purpose. It's everything I didn't know I was missing." Emma felt tears building. "You're not just the helper, Marcus. You're not just the uncle. You're the reason I survived. The reason Holland has a home. Dutch started it. You finished it. You held Shaw's men off so I could escape the mine. You rebuilt this house while I was in the hospital. You've been here every single day making sure we're safe." Emma took his hand. "Your family. Real family. Not because of blood, but because of choice." Marcus looked away, but not before Emma saw the tears in his eyes. "Dutch would be proud of you," she said softly. "The father he never got to be. That's who you've become." "I'm just doing what he asked." "You're doing more than that, and we both know it." They stood together, watching Holland play, watching the community Dutch had fought to protect finally healing from decades of fear. The letter arrived on a Tuesday morning 3 weeks after Holland's birthday. Emma recognized the handwriting immediately, shaky, elderly, the same hand that had written the notes she'd found in the house over a year ago. She opened the envelope with trembling hands. "Dear Emma, if you're reading this, then I'm dead and you found your way home. But unlike the first letter, this one wasn't meant to be found in the house. I gave it to someone I trusted with instructions to mail it 1 year after my death. I wanted to give you time to find the evidence, time to use it, time to decide what kind of person you wanted to be. By now you know everything. The murders, the cover-ups, the 40 years I spent fighting alone. You know I made mistakes. You know I was afraid. You know I let that fear stop me from doing what was right. But there's one thing you don't know. One secret I never put in any file or journal or recording. Your mother, Margaret, the reason she really left. It wasn't just about Ruth's death. It wasn't just about me being too weak to fight back. Margaret left because she discovered something I'd hidden from everyone, including your grandmother. I had an affair. You know that now. Marcus is my son. What you don't know is that Marcus isn't the only one. In 1975, I had another affair. Brief, meaningless. A mistake I've regretted every day since. The woman's name was Catherine Hartwell. She had a daughter. That daughter grew up married young and took her husband's name. Shaw. Victoria Shaw is your half-aunt Emma. Bradley Shaw's wife was the daughter of the woman I betrayed Ruth with. I discovered this connection 10 years ago when I started investigating Bradley more closely. I realized that the woman I'd wronged had raised a daughter who married into the family that murdered my wife. It wasn't coincidence. Vernon Shaw knew about my affair. He found Catherine, cultivated her, made sure her daughter met his son. He was building insurance, a connection to my family that could be used against me if I ever went public. What Vernon didn't expect was that Victoria would turn against her husband, that the blood connection to me would matter more than her marriage. Victoria has been feeding me information for years, Emma. She's the reason I knew about Bradley's current crimes. She's the one who told me where to find the evidence that finally brought him down. Your mother discovered the truth about Catherine when she was cleaning out the attic after Ruth's funeral. She found letters I should have destroyed. She confronted me and I told her everything. That's when she left. Not because I was weak, but because I'd betrayed Ruth before Ruth was even killed. Because my affair had created a connection to the Shaw family that made everything worse. Margaret couldn't forgive me. I don't blame her. I'm telling you this now because you deserve to know the whole truth. Victoria is family. Catherine is still alive, living in a nursing home in Richmond, and my shame didn't die with me. Build what I couldn't, Emma. Love without secrets. Fight without fear. Make the Dawson name mean something good again. And if you can find it in your heart, forgive an old man who made too many mistakes to count. I love you. I always have. Your grandfather, Dutch. Emma sat in her kitchen reading the letter 3 times, trying to process what it meant. Victoria Shaw, her half-aunt. The woman whose business card she still carried in her wallet. Catherine Hartwell. Her grandmother's replacement in Dutch's heart, even if only briefly. And her mother Margaret, who'd spent her whole life running from a family history even more complicated than Emma had known. Marcus found her an hour later still sitting at the table, the letter spread before her. What happened? Read it. He did. His face went through several expressions: shock, pain, understanding. Victoria is your aunt. And yours, sort of. Emma laughed, but there was no humor in it. Dutch really did leave a mess, didn't he? He left the truth. Marcus set down the letter, which is more than most people do. Do I contact her Catherine Victoria? Do I acknowledge this connection, or do I let it stay buried? What do you want to do? Emma thought about it, about the Ruth Dawson Foundation and its mission to expose hidden truths, about the legacy she was building on the foundation of Dutch's secrets. I think I need to meet them, both of them. I think the only way to really move forward is to understand all of it. She met Catherine first. The nursing home in Richmond was quiet, well-maintained, nothing like the chaos of Emma's life over the past year. Catherine Hartwell was 81 years old, her mind still sharp despite the body's decline. I wondered if you'd come? Catherine's voice was soft but clear. Dutch said you might someday. Said you had too much of Ruth in you to leave questions unanswered. Did you love him? For a few months, a long time ago. Catherine looked out the window at the nursing home garden. I was young, foolish. He was kind to me when my husband wasn't. It was wrong, and we both knew it. You had his daughter. I had a daughter. Victoria's father was my husband as far as anyone knew. Dutch and I ended things before I realized I was pregnant. Catherine turned back to Emma. When she was born with Dutch's eyes, I told myself it was coincidence. I lied to myself for years. Did Victoria know? I told her when she was 30, after she'd already married Bradley Shaw. Catherine's expression darkened. That's when everything changed. She realized the man she'd married was connected to the family that had hurt her real father. She started watching, listening. Eventually, she started feeding information back to Dutch. Victoria helped bring down her own husband because of you. Because of guilt, mine and hers. Catherine's eyes filled with tears. We both made terrible choices, Emma. We both spent our lives trying to make up for them. Victoria more than me. She risked everything. Emma sat with that for a long moment. I'm building a foundation, helping victims of powerful people. I want Victoria involved. Officially. She'd like that. She's been looking for a way to do good that isn't hiding in the shadows. Catherine reached out and took Emma's hand. Dutch told me about you. Said you were the best of Ruth's line. The one who would finally end the fight he started. I'm just doing what he asked. You're doing more than that. You're healing something that's been broken for generations. Catherine squeezed her hand. Thank you, Emma, for finishing what Dutch started, for forgiving an old woman who made too many mistakes to count. I haven't forgiven you yet. I know, Catherine smiled sadly, but you will, because that's who you are. Ruth's granddaughter, Dutch's hope, the one who knows that holding on to anger only hurts the person holding it. Victoria Shaw came to Harmony Falls a week later. She stood on the porch of the Dawson house, nervous, despite her composure, looking at Emma with eyes that were unmistakably Dutch's. Thank you for seeing me. Thank you for helping us. Emma stepped back. Come inside, we have a lot to talk about. They talked for 6 hours. About Dutch, about the evidence Victoria had gathered, about the risks she'd taken and the guilt she carried for not doing more sooner. I married Bradley because I didn't know who he really was, Victoria said. By the time I understood, I had 2 children with him. I couldn't just leave. He would have destroyed me, destroyed them. So you stayed, and you waited. I waited for someone to come who could use what I knew. Victoria looked at Emma with something like wonder. I never expected it to be family. Neither did I. Emma poured more coffee. But here we are. What happens now? Now you join the foundation, officially. Use your legal skills to help victims instead of hiding from your husband. Emma met Victoria's eyes. And you become part of this family, the real family, the one Dutch wanted to build but never could. Victoria's composure finally cracked. Tears spilled down her cheeks. I've been so alone, for so long, fighting by myself, afraid of what Bradley would do if he found out. You're not alone anymore. Emma reached across the table and took her hand. None of us are. The Ruth Dawson Foundation became one of the most effective victims advocacy organizations in the country over the next 5 years. Emma served as executive director, turning down offers from politicians and media companies who wanted to use her story for their own purposes. Marcus managed operations, building a network of investigators and lawyers who worked cases across 20 states. Victoria headed the legal department, bringing her sharp mind and insider knowledge to cases that seemed impossible. They won more than they lost. Exposed corruption in local governments, brought down corporate executives who thought their money made them untouchable, gave voice to families who had been silenced for generations. And through it all, Holland grew. She took her first steps in the living room of the Dawson house, surrounded by the photographs of Ruth and Dutch that Emma had hung on every wall. She said her first words in the garden that Ruth had planted, now restored to its original beauty. She learned to read from the journals Dutch had kept stories of courage and perseverance that would shape her understanding of the world. On Holland's 5th birthday, Emma took her to the graves. Ruth and Dutch were buried side by side in the Harmony Falls Cemetery headstones that had been upgraded from simple markers to monuments worthy of their sacrifice. This is your great-grandmother, Emma said, kneeling beside Ruth's grave. She was brave and kind, and she loved your great-grandfather more than anything in the world. What happened to her? Bad people hurt her, but your great-grandfather spent his whole life making sure they couldn't hurt anyone else. And you finished it. Holland's voice was matter-of-fact, the way children speak when they don't fully understand the weight of words. You made the bad people go to prison. I finished what he started, with help from a lot of people. Holland placed a flower on each grave the way Emma had taught her. Then she looked up with eyes that were pure Dutch, pure Ruth, pure everything the Dawson family had fought to preserve. Will I have to finish something too? Emma felt her heart clench. I hope not, baby girl. I hope the fighting is done. But if it's not, then you'll be ready, because you come from people who don't give up, who fight for what's right even when it's hard, who love fiercely and forgive slowly, but eventually forgive. Emma pulled her daughter close. That's your legacy, Holland Ruth. Not the money or the house or the foundation, the courage, the stubbornness, the refusal to let evil win. Holland hugged her mother tight. "I'll be ready, Mama, I promise." They walked home hand in hand past the courthouse that had been rebuilt after the fire, past the church, where Pastor Williams still preached every Sunday, past the houses of neighbors who had become family. Harmony Falls had changed. The fear that had gripped the town for 40 years had finally lifted. People talked openly about the Shaw family's crimes now. They told stories of Dutch's courage and Ruth's sacrifice. They pointed to the Dawson house with pride instead of superstition, and at the center of it all, Emma kept building, kept fighting, kept honoring the legacy Dutch had left her. The final chapter came 10 years after Emma first arrived in Harmony Falls. She was sitting on the porch watching Holland do homework at the table Dutch had built 50 years ago. Marcus was in the garden teaching a group of foundation volunteers how to plant tomatoes the way Dutch had taught him. Dorothy Chen had passed away 2 years ago, but her grandson visited every Sunday with his children, carrying on the connection between their families. A car pulled up the driveway. Emma recognized it immediately. Victoria. "Something happened," Victoria said, getting out. "You need to see this." She handed Emma a newspaper. Front page. Bradley Shaw dies in prison. Former real estate magnate found dead in cell. Emma read the article twice. Heart attack. Natural causes. No foul play suspected. "It's over," Victoria said quietly. "Really over this time." Emma looked at the photograph of Bradley Shaw, the man who had threatened her daughter, who had covered up her grandmother's murder, who had spent his life destroying anyone who stood in his way. Dead now, finally facing whatever judgment waited beyond. "I don't feel anything," Emma said. "I thought I would. Satisfaction, relief, something. Because it was never about him." Victoria sat down on the porch steps. "It was about the truth, about justice, about building something good from something terrible. Dutch's real legacy. Your real legacy, Emma. The foundation, the community you've built, the daughter you're raising." Victoria looked at Holland through the window. "That's what matters, not some old man dying alone in a prison cell." Emma followed her gaze. Holland was laughing at something Marcus had said, her whole face lit up with joy. "She doesn't remember being scared," Emma said. "Doesn't remember sleeping in the car or living in shelters or any of it. Her first memories are this house, this family, this community." "That's what you gave her, a fresh start." "That's what Dutch gave her. I just made sure it stuck." That night, after everyone had gone home and Holland was asleep, Emma walked through the house she'd inherited. The rooms that had once felt threatening now felt welcoming. The walls that had hidden so many secrets now displayed photographs of family gathered together. The floorboards that had creaked under Dutch's solitary footsteps now echoed with laughter and running feet, and all the sounds of a house full of life. She ended up in the well house, standing in the workshop where Dutch had spent so many hours building furniture and planning his impossible crusade. On the workbench sat a half-finished rocking chair. Dutch had been making it when he died. Marcus had offered to complete it, but Emma had asked him to leave it as it was. A reminder of work left undone, of the importance of finishing what others started. Emma ran her fingers along the unfinished wood. "I did it, Grandpa. Everything you asked and more. Holland knows who she comes from. The foundation helps people you never met. And the house, this house that everyone called cursed, it's full of love now." The workshop was silent, but Emma could almost feel Dutch's presence, his approval, his pride. "Thank you," she whispered, "for leaving me the key, for trusting me to finish what you started, for building a fortress that kept us safe until we could fight back." She walked out of the workshop and looked up at the stars. Somewhere out there, she believed Dutch and Ruth were finally together again, finally at peace, finally able to rest knowing that justice had been served and their family would continue. Emma closed the workshop door and walked back to the house. Holland was waiting on the porch, having apparently snuck out of bed. "Mama, what are you doing?" "Saying goodbye and thank you." "To Great-Grandpa Dutch." "To everyone who fought before us, so we could have this." Holland walked over and took her mother's hand. "I love our house." "I love it too, baby girl. And I love you. I love you more." They stood together on the porch of the Dawson house, mother and daughter, the last of a line that had nearly been destroyed and had somehow survived. The house that everyone had called cursed now glowed with warmth and light, standing strong against the night sky, ready to shelter whoever needed it next. Emma thought about the journey that had brought her here, the shelter that had kicked her out, the car she'd slept in, The $300 she'd arrived with, and the fortune she'd found hidden in walls and buried in mines and stored in safe deposit boxes. She thought about Bradley Shaw dead in his cell, about Vernon Shaw whose crimes had finally been exposed, about Ruth who had been murdered for loving the wrong man, and Dutch who had spent his life trying to make her death mean something. She thought about Marcus and Victoria and Dorothy and Pastor Williams and all the others who had helped along the way. The family she'd inherited and the family she'd chosen. The community that had rallied around her and the community she was building for others. And she thought about Holland. 5 years old, Ruth's eyes, Dutch's determination, a future as bright as the stars overhead. "Come on, baby girl," Emma squeezed her daughter's hand. "Time for bed. Will you tell me a story?" "Which one? The one about great-grandma Ruth and great-grandpa Dutch? How they met? How they fell in love? How they built this house?" Emma smiled. "That's a long story. I don't care. I want to hear all of it." They walked inside together, closing the door on the night and the past and all the pain that had brought them here. Tomorrow, Emma would wake up and continue building the foundation Dutch had dreamed of. She would help more victims expose more corruption, prove that the truth could never be permanently buried. But tonight, she would tell her daughter a love story about two people who found each other in a small town in West Virginia, who built a house that would outlast them both, who fought against impossible odds and lost but planted seeds that would eventually bloom into victory. Emma tucked Holland into bed and sat beside her, beginning the story the way Dutch had written it in his journal 60 years ago. Once upon a time, in a little town called Harmony Falls, there was a young man named Dutch who met a beautiful woman named Ruth at a church social. She laughed at his terrible jokes, and he knew from that moment that he would love her for the rest of his life. Holland listened with wide eyes, drinking in every word, becoming part of a story that stretched back generations and would continue forward forever. Outside the house on Dawson Road stood strong against the darkness. Its curse had been broken. Its secrets had been revealed. Its ghosts had finally found peace. And inside, a mother told her daughter about the power of love, the importance of truth, and the unbreakable strength of a family that refused to give up. The Dawsons had survived everything: murder and corruption, poverty and betrayal, 40 years of fear, and 1 impossible year of fighting back. They had emerged stronger than before, bound together by blood and choice, and the shared conviction that justice was worth any price. Emma finished the story as Holland's eyes drifted closed, her breathing slowing into the rhythm of peaceful sleep. "And they all lived," Emma whispered, kissing her daughter's forehead, truthfully ever after. "Help!" She turned off the light and walked to her own room, passing the photographs that lined the hallway. Ruth and Dutch. Margaret holding baby Emma. Emma holding baby Holland. 3 generations of Dawson women who had loved, fiercely lost terribly, and eventually found their way home. The house settled around her with familiar creaks and groans. The sound of old bones finally at rest. Emma smiled in the darkness and let herself believe for the first time since Ryan died that everything was going to be okay. Not because the fight was over, but because she finally knew she was strong enough to win. The end.